Just walk away. Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
Welcome back, everybody. MGTOW Chats, episode 93, on this wonderful Friday evening. As always, your host, I am Sirias, with Lamprey Milt, and our guest tonight is Aaron Thompson. That's your Aaron Thompson, correct?
Yes. I go by the name Isle of Aran.
Isle of Aran.
Yeah, it's an island. There's actually an island called Aran.
Okay.
Off the coast of Scotland.
Nice.
So,
well,
yeah.
I found, just for if the listeners are curious, I bumped into Aaron through the Red Pill Religion group, and because I was in that group because of Max Dean Esme, and then I've had a couple talks with him, and then I kind of, we were in that same circle, and we had some conversations. So that's how I got to know Aaron, and I wanted to get him on to kind of talk a little bit about what he understands and what he knows, and we're all kind of in the same boat here. We're all pretty much in the same boat. So you're doing okay tonight, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's a bit hot, but
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah, it's pretty hot here too, actually. What about you, Lamprey? How are you doing?
Never better, man. Good to be on. Enjoyed your Muslim chat last week. That was interesting.
Oh yeah, I thought it'd be interesting. A lot of information that nobody really talks about that stuff. So it went well. And by the way, Sam mirrored that talk on his channel, and it's got like 3 times the views we got on our channel. But anyway, guys, glad to see you here. We got Tariko is in. Tariko, just so you know, that was exactly 5 minutes. Warrior's in. Good to see you. Rico's in. Great, guys. Good to see you guys. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the title of the topic is Ground Zero for the Culture War. And that comes from a quick conversation I had with Aaron before we started the stream. And basically, that pertains to a certain geographical area in the United States, which is, I guess, known as the Pacific Northwest, or what some people say, what do they call it, Cascadia?
Yeah, Cascadia. There's a whole movement that's centered. Well, it's a movement, but there's kind of factions of the movement also.
Okay.
And
as you're
it's all
talking about, sorry, Aaron. As you're talking about it, I'm just going to put up that wiki page so people can kind of see. There.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, continue. Sorry, man.
Oh, no worries. But yeah, the movement is centered. Well, the left elements, or the, I don't know, you could say radical, liberal elements, are centered around the idea of bioregionalism, which also kind of ties in. It's similar if you look up the word eco-region.
Yeah.
It's very environmentalist theme, very, very Agenda 21, or Agenda 2030 now. And just based on the idea that that physical boundaries should be drawn based on the local environment and all of the species that are native to that region. And
yeah, that's definitely Agenda 21 stuff, man.
The soil, there's a lot of very it's volcanic. I mean, that whole area is very volcanic, and the soil is very volcanic, and some of the best soil in the country. If you drive through like the Willamette Valley there,
Mhm.
you'll see some really amazing, uh, farms, and they have wineries and all kinds of farms, and it's it's some really really amazing soil, and then they have a lot of water there. That some of the purest water in the country. They have the oldest rainforest I, in the world.
Right.
So there are all these kind of valuable environmental assets, if you will.
Well, and it also, if the listeners, if you're looking at the screen there, the kind of proposed map, and it includes one entire province of Canada, which is British Columbia. Um, and British Columbia has always been liberal, man. It's been liberal since the '60s, and it's like the I believe it's the only province in the entire country that voted in the Green Party. So it's run by Greens. So that gives you an idea of kind of the mindset of the politicians in that part of the world. And then in that wiki article you sent me, because I'd heard about this a long time ago. This has been around a while, but this sort of bioregional territory. Uh, there was one in the description of the movement. It says the designer of the Doug flag, Alexander Bertik, claims that Cascadia is not
Yeah.
necessarily about secession, but is rather about the survival of peak oil, global warming, and other pending environmental and socio-economic problems.
Yeah, yeah, and I had actually spoken to that guy a lot of on many occasions when I lived there, and he he lives it. Let me tell you, he's not. I absolutely disagree with his politics,
Hmm.
but he he sells patches, right? He sells patches with the Doug flag, and you know he sells actual flags, and he demands not to make any profit off of it. He's very very poor. I think the last time I knew, he was actually homeless, and so, and he um he's he's an orthodox socialist, in a green orthodox socialist, very much so. He's an interesting guy, and another thing too, I should point out, as far as indoctrination and the way the education system there has a lot to do with this. Uh, on the Wikipedia page under the Cascadia Independence Movement, I don't know if that's the one you're sharing. I can't see your screen right now, but
Yeah, it's the one I'm sharing.
yeah. So under in popular culture, it has the first bullet point on there is about a book called Ecotopia
Okay, yeah, I got it.
by Ernest Callenbach. Now, I went to community college there for a little while, and then I transferred into a university. Uh, and the one of the books that was uh, given to us to read for a political science class that I took was that book.
So, all right, so you got first-hand experience with that book.
And yeah, yeah, and if you read it, it is. I mean, I recommend people out there read it just to see the propagandistic elements of it. Because a lot of people there, they really kind of see it as this kind of predictive, like they actually want it to happen. Like, um, they actually think that something like that should actually come into fruition, and it's weird.
It's a fictional book.
Right.
So
But it's kind of predictive programming,
right.
in a sense.
A lot of fiction is, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's sort of science fiction esque, but um it's basically all about it's about Cascadia. I think that the idea came from that book, and or at least some elements of the idea of Cascadia came from that book. And you can read the little short. It says here in Wikipedia, the concept of a Northwestern secession movement is central to the book's plot. So there you go.
Yeah.
And it's depicted as a fictionalized breakaway republic that seceded from the United States after the threat of nuclear war. And it's been so long since I read it, but there's all these different, like, everything was based. It was like the Flintstones. Like the cars there, they didn't run on oil or anything. Like they were all made out of wood and freaking rocks or something. Like just weird stuff. And everybody. One of the big things I remember about it was that everybody communicated with each other out in the open. All of the disagreements and arguments and conflicts that people had were all out in the open. Everybody was, totally okay with just communicating with each other about everything out in the open.
So there was like no private conversation?
Yeah. So it was this whole weird sort of idea that there's like no privacy.
That's very Marxist.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the professor, the political science professor who had us read it, he is a Catholic. He was a left. I can't remember the form of Catholicism that he practiced, but it was the kind of left communitarianism.
Interesting.
He's very into communitarianism.
Maybe it was Unitarian.
No, he was actually Catholic. He is Catholic.
Oh, he's Catholic. Okay.
Yeah, and he actually studied with one of the one of the people who he wrote a book on Gandhian nonviolence.
Okay.
And Satyagraha, which is the paths to nonviolence that Gandhi wrote about. It that came from him.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He has a beard, doesn't he?
The guy who
he has a YouTube channel.
No, I don't think he does. This guy doesn't. He's not online very much. I've seen. I don't know if he had a blog at one point, but he teaches. I mean, he brought people to Portland to speak. He brought this woman named Vandana Shiva, for example, an eco-feminist.
Vandana Shiva?
Yeah, she's a very, very outspoken bioethicist. She actually sparked the tree hugger movement in India. She was behind that. She helped organize all that back in the 70s. And he brought her to Portland to speak, if that tells you anything. And she identifies herself as an eco-feminist. She's very well known for speaking out against Monsanto and genetically modified organisms, genetically modified foods. She's a very, very outspoken advocate of seed saving, and she's from India. She kind of touts herself as today's kind of version, to like a female modern day version of Gandhi. She's doing with seed saving. She's doing the same thing with seed saving as Gandhi was with homespun clothing.
Is she still alive then?
Yeah, she's still alive.
Well, then how come she's not more popular? Like a female Gandhi today? Wouldn't that be like fucking headline news?
She is pretty popular, but she's only popular among a lot of pretty hardline kind of left, radical, left environmentalists. Like Portland was one of, if not the first city to ban Monsanto.
Okay.
For example, so there's a lot of people in Portland who really love her. I thought a lot of what she said made sense in terms of the technology, but then once I learned more about what feminism was and how she's Marxist, she's a Marxist socialist,
Absolutely.
basically, and
Well,
it's like,
you think someone, based on what you've told me, you'd think someone with that kind of resume today would have like AOC levels of popularity, but maybe a little smarter.
yeah, it's mostly, I think, amongst a lot of niche movements and niche groups, and then maybe in India she's more popular with some people.
Cool. Non-violence movement, I think, is what you're describing. It comes from the Northwest region and it infuses like a Gandhi-esque type of thinking with yoga and fucking all that other bullshit.
Hey, I used to do yoga.
I'm not totally sure about that, but
Well, it's a feel good, don't be violent. If you have a problem, discuss it with the community. Eat organic food, don't hurt the animals. Yeah, I kind of get
promoted that in the book, definitely, for
right.
sure.
I get the idea on what it's about.
Yeah, and it was this kind of weird. It's like
hippies. They're
grooming
hippies.
people to accept living in a surveillance state, really.
Right, you're hippies, but they want to shove a camera up your ass to make sure you're abiding by hippie rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
which is basically what the Northwest kind of represents at this point.
Well, yeah, and that, well, and I wanted to get in. It's that's a big part of it, but then there's always been a big kind of divide, because when you talk, I've heard you talk a lot about the city lamprey, and the mega cities, and how messed up that is. And
urban environment, the behavioral sink, just the amount of people that, the mixing of people, it's kind of hard to find your place when you're atomized like that.
Yeah, and that kind of thing happens, anywhere where there's megacities. Portland it's a smaller megacity, but it's still a megacity, right. And it's an ICLEI city also. There's
oh yes, I know a lot about ICLEI, my friend.
Yeah.
What's ICLEI?
And it's an
NGO that promotes sustainable communities and sustainable development. It's kind of like the driving force of Agenda 21.
Yeah, and now 2030. It's no longer Agenda 21.
I don't use the term Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 anymore. I just say it's sustainable development. This way people understand that more, and it's got a better ring to it than if you say Agenda 21. People already turn you out because it's linked in with Glenn Beck and Alex Jones and stuff.
Right, and I don't really care. I mean, and there's a woman who identifies herself as a Democrat who writes about this too. When you mention her name, then I don't know. I haven't really gotten into it enough to know, but
Kosa, whatever her name is. Yeah, she's a fucking hippie lunatic.
Rosa.
Some things she says are, some of those things she speaks about is really good, but she hasn't released any content in a long time, which makes me wonder.
Her name is Rosa Corey, or I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I know. She's got white hair. She got big lips. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, she's not bad. I think she's good for the average layman who wants to get a good snapshot on what Agenda 21 is, or sustainable development. But there are better material out there. I personally like John Anthony's Agenda 21 Explain video much, much more. And I plan on doing a live stream with Ayam where we actually play that video and then we comment on it. But yeah, I know a lot about TDRs, transfer developmental rights, air rights, these, the rezoning, recoding, and yeah, a lot of that stems from the Northwest. For example, the one of the biggest, I guess, one of the biggest signage, I don't know what you want to call it, like a meeting of the minds from the UN transpired in 1976 in Vancouver. I think it was like called the Vancouver Agreement or something, and that's where they outlined where owning a single family home is bad for the environment, and we have to work and coordinate to get rid of people out of single family homes.
Wow. Yeah. So, but Portland is, it's a similar kind of dynamic. Only, um, I don't know how things are in the on the East Coast, but I remember hearing all these stories, and I don't know exactly how biased they really were. I'm sure they were relatively biased also, but the stories I heard was that outside of Portland, and I visited some areas outside of Portland, and I was told by a lot of people who live in Portland who are very left, radical in many cases, that outside of Portland was just totally racist, like Nazi capital, literally, and it was, I think, at one point identified as the Nazi capital. Apparently, you're into punk rock music, right? Right, Lamprey?
Yes.
So you might be interested in this. Jello Biafra once got beat up by a bunch of Nazis in Portland during the '80s when the Dead Kennedys were touring there.
Wow. Okay.
And
Well, Portland, what my mother knows, studies the state of Oregon a lot. She has this type of fascination with it. And then my brother likes the show Portlandia. So both my mother and my brother kind of follow, even though they've never been there, they're kind of intrigued by all these type of movements which what you're describing. And one of the most important things that people need to make note of when it comes to the city of Portland, it has the highest rate of homeless teenagers in the United States, and there's a huge heroin and methamphetamine problem there also.
It's
it
like that.
does.
It's like that in Vancouver, Victoria, too, man. Just north of the border there.
Right. So again, this whole region where it seems to be this mindset where you kind of just go there and be somewhat of a bum, I want to say, and say that it's cool. Like that's kind of what that's what it reminds me of in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, like slacker culture, kind of.
Slacker culture, right?
Yeah.
And what comes with slacker culture is no culture, and that's where I think T. Kelly or Myth of the 20th Century did a whole podcast on the Vancouver real estate problem and how the further and further away you are from your roots, your ethnic background, the easier it is for Marxist thinking to take footing. So that's why you see places like California, Washington, Vancouver, and Oregon have much more a leftist-leaning political view versus, let's say, Montreal, where if you don't speak French, fuck off,
Right.
So where in Vancouver, you let just the Chinese just dominate you because you really have no stake in the future of Vancouver because that whole region of the world was never populated. Even when Native Americans were around, Native Americans didn't go there. So it's a relatively new land that people have only been living on for the past 250 years. Not a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know,
I was getting to that too. Yeah.
just quickly in the comments, Tariko says the largest contingent of the KKK outside of the South is allegedly in Southern Oregon.
Yeah, I've heard something similar. I think that's true, and then you have the other side, the hippie culture. There's such now for anybody listening who doesn't know about Oregon, and I think you'll find this really interesting as far as how it all ties in with all the MK Ultra programming.
Mm-hmm.
The Merry Pranksters, for example, Uh, they hung out in Eugene.
Oh, someone just mentioned Eugene in the comments.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yeah. They and what's his name? Um, the guy who organized the Merry Pranksters. There was a book written about him, and by Tom Wolfe called "The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test."
Oh yeah.
Ken Kesey. He also wrote. Let's see.
Isn't Leary from Washington State, also Oregon?
No, Leary isn't from there. He's from California. Um, I think Berkeley, the same
Okay.
college where the Unabomber attended. So it's the same, it's similar kind of programming. As far as the drug culture, the postmodern kind of chaos indoctrination, and in a way, the Unabomber was also very much a product of that. There's a guy in Oregon who's a lot lesser known than the Unabomber, who went by the name Trey Arrow, who was also he actually ran for a Green Party candidacy, who uh, um, he was an eco-terrorist. He was cited as an eco-terrorist by the FBI, and for he and like two or three other people. He was part of something called the Earth Liberation Front, and they blew up a bunch of logging trucks. And it's, as far as I see it, I don't know where he went to school. I don't know what his deal was with education and all that, but I would be willing to bet he probably subjected himself to the same kind of postmodernist propaganda at one point or another, to want to carry something like that out, and to want to to resort to those ends. It it very much ties in with a lot of this social programming, and
You
and
mentioned
yeah,
Kesey.
Ken Kesey, yeah, Ken Kesey hung out in Eugene a lot, and they went across the country on the school bus. Tom Wolfe wrote a book about it called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, and they experimented with LSD, and that was one of the first kind of big events that was heavily publicized that really started glamorizing LSD.
And that was like in the mid '60s, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and LSD is a, you can read studies on it. It's been cited as a hypersuggestigent,
Yeah, absolutely.
and same with a lot of other psychedelic drugs,
Yeah.
like mushrooms,
Psilocybin, yeah.
and
Which they're trying to legalize now.
Yes.
yeah, and I really think that it's like this recipe for disaster when you mix all of those drugs, and I think the people who have been pushing this, I think they knew exactly what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you mix that with education, with the whole education system that's based in postmodernist indoctrination,
Hmm.
and the idea that there's no such thing as truth, and the rejection of religion and religious tradition,
Yeah.
it creates this kind of self reinforcing feedback loop.
Well, have
And
you ever done LSD?
I have many years ago in the past.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's a pretty messed up drug, man.
it is. It is. It's.
I'm doing White Claw right now.
One tab or two?
I got two. raspberry and kiwi lime or some shit.
What's white? What's White Claw?
It's like a zero carb alcoholic beverage.
Oh, yeah, no, no. LSD is cheating, as far as I see it. It's same with all of those. You know, there's a reason they're referred to as entheogens.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a horrible drug, man. Horrible drug. When I was in my well, I guess I'd say late teens, early 20s, there was a resurgence of it in the area that I lived in, and I'm in southern Alberta, so I'm pretty close to the Cascadia. Um, there was a resurgence in it, and it was everywhere. I remember as a kid, everybody was doing it, and my experience of it, you know, after kind of experimenting with it, was like this is horrible shit, man. I don't understand why, but now obviously I understand why it was promoted. You know, like you said.
it yeah, it literally helps. It helps create a level of hypersuggestibility,
Yeah.
and it makes people easier to program, basically. And you know, I actually personally met Timothy Leary also
Oh
many
yeah.
years ago. Um, and you know, it all ties in with all of these different countercultures. Um,
And
you know,
this
just making counterculture something that is mainstream, basically,
right.
in order to distance people from religion and God.
Now, do you
That's basically it.
do you think that, you know, what we're discussing now? I mean, we're kind of going back in time even and talking about that part of the United States and sort of the culture at the time, and what it was moving towards, and it you know it involved mind altering drugs. It involved sort of an indoctrination into sort of an God, what do you call it? Some kind of eco political system,
Hmm.
and that, I mean, is that kind of what you're getting at as sort of a ground zero, and how that sort of spread out to what we're seeing happen in the modern day?
Well, as far as it being a ground zero, um, what I had more in mind was that, and what a lot of my friends who talk about this refer to is how, kind of how there's that end of it. There's the kind of psychedelics counterculture end of it, and then there's the very like uh, kind of right uh, elements. I don't think Patriot Prayer is at all like that.
Okay.
I think the media is trying to make them out to be that way, and I think Antifa tries to make them out to be that way.
So is there a
Uh,
difference? Is there a difference between the electric Kool-Aid acid test of 1964 and or not just a difference, but maybe a similarity between that and uh, the modern day Antifa movement? Because honestly, man, the one thing, at least from the conversation we've had and some of the articles that you've sent me, the one thing that's remained consistent that I've seen, okay, regardless of the drugs, is this sort of uh, conditioning into this eco politics.
yeah,
This,
and I think that is one of the big similarities right there. Um, and it's the indoctrination that's similar. The Portland State University. When you take, even if you just take a science class there, there's the still a whole lot of postmodernist kind of. You know, I'm not saying that the teachers teach postmodernism in, you know, science in the sciences, but the teachers are very Marxist. You know, many of them, um, and very socialist minded.
and so is
And
so is all of California today.
Yeah, I have a good story. Okay, so I was going there to take a lot of environmental sciences. Not necessarily because I'm an environmentalist or anything like that, but just because I was interested in doing work outdoors, away from the city and out in nature and things like that.
Hmm.
And I took one class with a woman who she was teaching biogeography, and we uh, had to read. She gave us a list of books that we could read. I read Darwin's Origin of Species, and and I wrote a paper on it, and I was kind of a non-traditional student for different reasons, and so I was a little bit older too, but I apparently she'd not come across any of the ideas that I wrote about with any other students, and she'd asked questions. She wanted us to answer questions about the book, whatever book it was that we chose to read.
Hmm.
And one of the questions she asked was, who was the target audience?
Okay.
And with Darwin, I counted the word profit, like profit, or some variant like profiting,
Right.
in that book. I don't know how many times, but a lot. And so, so I was thinking, well, the target audience were people who would be profiting off of his scientific discoveries, like farmers and um, anybody who like sells plants and or harvests plants for any reason, and and she was like, "Whoa, I never really thought of that." Like that's just way too I mean, she didn't say it was capitalist, but
So are you telling me you turned a hippie professor off of Darwin?
no, I think I presented a very capitalist idea
Right.
to her in answering that question, and in pointing out that the target audience were people who would actually make money off of his ideas and off of the ability to domesticate plants and animals.
Right.
And um and I just don't think a lot of students there really thought that way, because they're all about we shouldn't profit off of nature, nobody owns nature, you know um it's wrong, it's immoral to own nature, we all share everything belongs to everybody. It's oppressive uh to farm animals. We should all live like hunters and gatherers,
Like the
eat,
Flintstones.
rewild everything, that because that's a lot of what I mean, what the hippie culture, it was just part of in my opinion, part of a de-evolution process, and things just devolved even further into what they are now. Antifa is more of the sort of anarchist kind of side of it. The more, um, you know, they reject authority in similar ways that hippie culture uh, does and did.
Hmm.
But you don't see them being the violent arm to this movement, when it comes to Antifa. I don't know much about Antifa. I said that to AM earlier. It just seems that they're just paid teenagers to be antagonists to people that are just trying to work and stuff.
Yeah, well, and I think it's not just teenagers. There are probably teenagers, but I think a lot of them are college students. That's why I'm bringing up
Right.
the college system, because
Mentally, they're teenagers. That's what I mean by teenager.
Yeah.
They're in the 13th grade.
Yes.
yeah, and they see what they're doing as some kind of virtuous, like morally virtuous. I don't know if moral is the right word, but as far as it goes back to that whole idea of total freedom. They want total freedom, and anything that violates total freedom is fascist.
See, when you're saying their total freedom, that would be libertarianism.
Uh, yeah, there's elements of libertarianism in that sense. But like there's even such thing as anarcho-fascism. A lot of people don't know this, but there is something. There's such thing as anarcho-fascism.
Mhm.
And so, for example, with all the people there who are indoctrinating their 10-year-old boys into transgenderism, and to accepting being a transgender identification at the age of 10. I would wager to guess. I don't know if they're Antifa, but it ties in with the similar principles. Like to some single mother who's raising a 10-year-old son, and indoctrinating her son into accepting transgender identity. To her, that's total freedom.
Yeah.
And there's actually a great video a friend of mine did just recently. Would you guys mind if I plugged somebody really fast?
Yeah, no, go ahead, man.
So there's a woman who I've been connected with online. Her name is Alicia Clegg, last name Clegg, and her first name is Elicia.
Clegg? How do you
She
spell
did a
Clegg?
video on anti-work, anti-family, feminist wants, and poly parents, and a lot of what she covered in that video is some woman, some feminist woman who basically wants to abolish the family, and basically just make it so the end game, the end outcome would be there is no such thing as a family. The community is the family, and there's no we abolish gender identity. We abolish all these things that were the invention of patriarchy.
Well, and going back a sec, I think that ties in a lot with what what we started with when you said the wilding. Okay, I'm just going back a few steps, but when you mentioned the wilding, and we talk about sort of the green agenda, that kind of politics, they don't want. They know that that's not going to happen through Gandhi-like passive means. It needs to
Right.
be, it has to
Right.
be forced on the population. If you want to turn people into the Flintstones, you have to force that onto the population. And the wilding is also a part of absolute freedom of tyranny. Do what you want. Leave nature alone. Be peaceful. Be hippies. And now, as you're getting into now, my point is it connects in that sense that yes, this sort of do as thou will, absolute freedom. It can't. You're not going to legislate that in or do it through example.
Right.
This has to be done with an iron fucking fist. Don't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, and there definitely is a rift, in terms of ideological views between people who are hippies and people who are Antifa in the outlooks on use of violence. But essentially, many of those people, from different groups, that is all kind of part of the do as thou wilt philosophy is basically central.
If you did a survey and you asked one person, do you believe in sort of this green agenda or the wilding, returning to nature, and they said yes, I guarantee you, if the next question you asked was, do you believe in the freedom of choosing your gender and sexuality, they would also say yes.
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
There's a connection there.
Yeah. If I've just remembered something too, for everybody listening, it's the YouTube channel for Alicia Clegg's YouTube channel is Toxic Threads. is what it's called.
Send me a link and I'll throw it up.
Okay. And but yeah, um, it's like, I don't know if you've ever. Here's another thing about the Pacific Northwest, and why it's such a ground zero. There's all these other things that I could bring up about how counterculture, various elements of counterculture from all different spectrums, have roots there. The Rainbow Gathering, for example.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, that one of the I think one of, if not the first Rainbow Gathering took place in I can't remember if it was Oregon or Washington. And there's just all these different uh, uh, elements. Like look at the grunge movement, and how that all tied in with heroin use and making
And plaid.
popular. And yeah, well, plaid came from the Scots.
And then it was recognized as your lumberjack, right?
Yeah, right. But yeah, and there's some distinctly creepy lumberjacks in Oregon. I've never met any of them personally, but I've heard stories. Anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of really in terms of it being a ground zero, there's a lot of very radical elements and a lot of very extremist elements. I sent you a link to the Portland 7 too.
Yes, I have that.
They were the first people. They were Muslims to be charged under the Patriot Act, for example, and they lived in Portland. There's a lot of really nefarious,
interesting
elements of the war on terror too, but I don't want to get into that too deeply. But I also do think it ties into this in a way where a lot of it is fueled by people who want a war to happen. They want a civil war to happen. They want conflict because the conflict helps them push through a lot of kind of police state sort of policies, and a lot of those policies have to do with megacities,
right?
And so I don't know if obviously nobody knows if things will ever get to the point where there's just some all-out civil war in this country. I have heard people like Tim Pool talk about it and other YouTubers, and it's there's a lot of people who have concerns that it might happen. And I do think if it does happen, Oregon would definitely be kind of a ground zero for it. And
you need something to galvanize the far right, which is never going to happen. So there's not going to be a civil war.
Who was the one that I don't know if it was one of you guys that sent me an article, if I just saw it in passing today, where it was an article on, I'm looking at the links that you sent. Anyway, I'll just mention what it said was it mentioned how a lot of the left now are agreeing to are now arming themselves in a contradiction.
I sent you that.
You sent me that. Okay, you sent me that.
Yeah, I sent it to you because we were going to do the Antifa thing, so I sent you 2 articles on Antifa. But yeah, no, that's kind of what, like 15 people in Seattle got guns and one of them's a tranny. Like, give me a fucking break.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the lesbian's really going to start gunning. Get the fuck out of here. Fucking ridiculous. No, there's no civil war, man. It's just going to be a lot of pain emotionally for people. I think Andy Nowicki did a phenomenal upload today regarding the cognitive dissonance, the concept of woke capital, where it's just going to be a lot of emotional hurt for the overwhelming majority of people under the age of 40. And then after that, once the people under 40 are kind of went through this social engineering, what takes its place from the younger generation is going to be more of a feudalistic society where we're regressing back to what it was in medieval times, which kind of coincides with what our guest on tonight is discussing, where it's this whole green movement, where part of the regression might be this conflated version of hippies and going green and green fascism, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that's what I was going to share with you. Also, is the anarcho-fascism. It's an interesting kind of idea.
Do you want to share screen, or do you want to send me something? Because we could do a share screen if you have something you want to do.
Well, right now I don't know if it's necessary. I can tell you that there's a book about it.
Okay.
If you want to share the screen about the book, it's right here. I'll send you the link. It's Amazon. I don't really like Amazon for different reasons, but that's what comes up first. And a guy named Jonas Nilsson wrote the book on it. It deals the description on Amazon is it deals with a multitude of important current issues and presents a controversial and constructive starting point for an intellectual discussion on how the West can regain control of its own destiny. Rightly be described as a polemical pamphlet built on solid arguments and full of references to other works for those who wish to deepen their knowledge. I've personally not read this book, I just know that it's the only book out there on the topic.
And it's not an oxymoron.
But basically, it ties into the idea that in order to carry out something like total freedom, where basically, if you wanted to have a whole legal socio-economic system framed around the idea of do as thou wilt, and it, there's nothing, just everything being legal.
Now, what you keep going back to this concept like this. Now, there's something that obviously intrigues you about it, and what is that?
Something intrigues me about it?
Yeah, because you mentioned this whole anarcho-fascism thing, where people do as they please as long as it doesn't hurt anybody like that. Is that something that you somewhat agree with? Like, do you
No,
agree with that type of libertarianism?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
No, and as a matter of fact, I've had random experiences when I lived there, talking to people who did very much agree with those principles, and talk about how those. I had some understanding of natural law, for example, in terms of biblical natural law, and the biblical idea of natural law, and I would bring up how doesn't, like, the idea of transgenderism and identifying as a woman, even though you're a biological male, doesn't that violate certain principles associated with natural law?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, what's nature, or what's nature? What's
nature is the trees.
Don't we invent what nature, what the idea of nature is? Is our we're already so distanced from nature. Why does it even matter? And it's just really the just typical. What I've learned are basically typical postmodern Marxist arguments. To address. They basically just rejecting religious principles altogether, using postmodernist arguments. That's what I was mostly met with, in a very kind of polite way, and then some people I've even experienced. Some people just straight out accusing me of, they didn't accuse me, but I've seen other people being accused of homophobia and all the rest of it.
That means
you know,
nothing. That means nothing. It means
just
absolutely nothing.
just for like addressing why queer theory sucks, for example, and and speaking of queer theory, there's other people like William S. Burroughs, who is sort of a pioneer of queer theory, who spent a lot of time in Portland. People like him and his ideas are glamorized through the media, and a lot of the people who helped glamorize them are based in Portland. It's a cesspool for that kind of stuff. And so when you talk about homeless people there, and how much of a problem it is, and how it may not be quite as bad as San Francisco. There's not poop in the streets or anything,
Yeah.
but
Not yet.
it's yeah, right. It's getting to the point, and there's definitely a lot of urination everywhere, and it's no wonder though that people are so busy. Literally, in a way, I think I sent you an article about the city commissioner Nick Fish.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. We were kind of leaning towards that. I'll pull that up.
Yeah, funding the arts there, and he mentions Gus Van Sant, for example. He's like a known pedophile. He's a member of NAMBLA.
Yeah, man. Okay, which
Uh,
one? Which one was it? The
Let me see if I can find it here.
not Terry Bean.
No, Terry Bean is friends with Nick Fish. Let's see.
Yeah,
No,
because this leads. I mean, everything we're talking about leads right into. I mean, God, it's so interesting to me how environmental politics tied directly into sort of political violence and sexual deviancy.
yeah,
It's so
Well, that's part of the leftist and the encompassness of leftist politics. You have to be gay, you have to be green, and gay and green basically, and a lot of that ties into the tech companies that are on board for these type of green policies because they don't abide by the same rules and regulations as, let's say, an offshore fisherman or an oil company or a mechanic, for example. So when you push a leftist green agenda, it's a much more consolidation of wealth for people that run tech industries because they don't require nearly as many resources.
right. Yeah, man, it's crazy. And hey, Aaron, while you're looking for that, I'm just going to quickly go through the chats. There's a lot of comments, and I want to address some of them. Let's go back up to. Well, MGTOW Smurf mentioned that before the Portland 7, there was the Chicago 7 in the late 60s.
I don't know much about them, but that the war on terror hadn't started. That was the Portland 7 was post
Post
9/11.
Yeah, post
So
9/11.
that's a big one right there as far as the timing and how that all kind of ties into the war on terror and pushing forth this huge postmodernist agenda
Yeah.
as a result or as a kind of answer to the terror attacks on 9/11. I'm really having a difficult time tracking down that article. I think I sent it to you somewhere.
I know I have it, but um, I know I have the article because everyone you sent to me on the Facebook link, I bookmarked them. So I'm looking at not Terry Bean, Oregon politician who received donations, accuser in Seattle mayor sex abuse suit, PSU professor.
The one that I'm specifically referring to, I'll just talk about it while I'm looking for it, so people don't get bored. But basically, Portland is really big into funding the arts, more so than maybe some other cities, And Nick Fish is, I mean, in general, Hollywood receives a lot of taxpayer subsidies. Hollywood is a propaganda outlet for government, basically.
Yes, that's its purpose.
And the people from Portland who work in Hollywood, like Gus Van Sant, he if, for example, directed a movie. I think he directed Drugstore Cowboy, which was a very influential kind of counterculture film. Yeah, he did.
Is that Dustin
was like-
Hoffman or?
No, it was
that's
Matt
Midnight
Dillon.
Cowboy. Sorry.
It's an early Matt Dillon movie, and it's about a leader of a family of drug addicts, and they basically go around and rob drugstores so that they can get high.
Right.
And they're glamorized, and Gus Van Sant directed that movie. It's totally glamorized, and so. And it was a lot of those scenes, I think maybe even all of them were filmed in Portland. And when you have, that was back in 1989, and you have people like Nick Fish. There's the article I'm referring to was he mentions specifically Gus Van Sant and a bunch of other movie directors and such. And how he supports them and wants to fund them, and it completely reinforces their whole agenda. The propagandistic elements basically glamorize all of it, and these are taxpayer dollars. They're using taxes to create propaganda that ultimately, it's pro pedophile, it's pro drug abuse, it's and they're glamorizing all of the problems that end up contributing to things like homelessness. And it's intentional.
Well,
it's purely intentional.
Homeless people, or especially young homeless people, are more vulnerable to be taken advantage of, especially when they're more likely to be introduced and addicted to drugs. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Nick Fish is friends with Gus Van Sant. He's also friends with Terry Bean. Terry Bean, for everyone listening, Terry Bean is a pioneer of the LGBT rights movement. He, I think, was the co-founder, if not the founder, of an organization called the Human Rights Campaign. And, just speaking of Hollywood, how this all ties in. The Human Rights Campaign, something I came across while I was researching. They awarded the Wachowski brothers, the people who directed the Matrix film series,
and who both became women.
Now they're called sisters, right? Terry Bean is friends with Nick Fish, and he donates money to all kinds of political. He donated money to the Clintons, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He donated money to a lot of different political campaigns. The Oregon's Attorney General, her name is Rosen Bloom, I think. Rosen something. Here's that video I sent you. It's Ellen Rosenblum, and Ellen Rosenblum's husband worked. He owns this popular weekly newspaper there called the Willamette Week, and they used this this company, this what's it called? It's backspace. I can't remember what the name of it is offhand. I'll have to check my notes. But there's one company that a lot of weekly newspapers have been using to for what's it called, like a Craigslist kind of company.
Right.
And the owners, they actually lived in Sedona, Arizona, or one of them had a house in Sedona, which is a very new age city. A lot of people there are very, very into the new age movement.
Hey,
and,
I'll post that. I'll post a link to that video you sent me in the chats of the stream, so people can watch it if they want.
Yeah, sure, that would be great.
Yeah,
and that's somebody who I've known. I know from Portland.
The guy in the video.
Yeah, his name is Kif Davis.
Oh, that's the guy you were talking about. Okay.
He's a bit angsty, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I watched it. He's doing in your face kind of reporting.
Yeah, he does ambush journalism basically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really necessarily agree with all of his philosophies. He does a lot of cop watching and things like that. I'm not necessarily fully against the idea of policing myself, but he does a lot of cop watching, and he's a very he's been doing it for a long time. He's very kind of in your face about a lot of what he does in his videos. Very, very no holds barred kind of YouTuber.
Right.
But I can't seem to bring up that article. Anyway, Ellen Rosenblum received contributions from Terry Bean. Terry Bean is friends with people like Nick Fish.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Bean was arrested and charged on pedophilia-related charges. And let me just bring up this article.
I've got Terry Bean article you sent me from the Willamette Week about him re-indicted on sex abuse charges.
Yep. That happened earlier this year. When he was re-indicted. And this other article I have here, I don't think I sent this one to you. It's from golocalpdx.com. I'll go ahead and link it to you in Skype.
No,
but
I got it.
Okay.
Investigation. It's fucking only one I didn't click on, for Christ's sake.
But they looked into how Rosenblum's husband worked with these people who owned, where is it? Back something. This company that harbored child trafficking.
That's okay. Yeah. That's the lady that's being interviewed in the video that you sent me, or being, what did you call it? Gorilla, or when he approached her in the YouTube video.
Yes, that is Ellen Rosenblum,
okay.
who he is approaching in that video.
Yeah, and you guys, the article I'm showing you now, in that video, I don't really like playing videos on my live streams unless I personally know the person. I do it sometimes, but it's always, you never know, man. YouTube's just too crazy now. So check out the link that I put in the chats, guys. You don't have to watch it now, you can watch it later, but this is who he's talking about if you're looking at the article now. And the video is short, it's only a couple minutes long. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so the company, I finally found the name. It's Backpage is what it's called, and there's a article I have in front of me from April 2018 on the about the founder of Backpage being charged for human trafficking, and that was before he was actually arrested. He was arrested later, and Backpage.com is a that company is used very commonly in a lot of weekly newspapers around the country, and Willamette Week is one of them, and Ellen Rosenblum's husband owns Willamette Week, and they basically, if you see that video and how she responds to Kif Davis in that video, that's generally how they respond anytime anybody brings that up with them. That they were basically harboring human trafficking by doing business with this company. I think they still do business with this company. I don't remember for sure on that, but they did, and they completely deny any wrongdoing with that.
Of course they do.
And this is the Attorney General of the state of Oregon we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's a woman.
Sure. Yeah. The story of Lot. Anybody?
Yes. I'm very familiar with that story. Except in Hebrew, in Hebrew or Arabic, you'd call him Lut.
Sure. Yeah. It's it's throughout the whole city and state government. It's endless. Just follow Terry Bean's campaign contributions, and a lot of this also ties in with Epstein, because you have Epstein's connections with the Clintons, and then there is another lesser known individual who there's a YouTuber who has been doing a lot of really detailed videos about Epstein, who goes by the name Amazing Polly.
Yes, I know who that is. I'm subscribed. Good content.
Yeah. She's probably one of my favorite YouTubers out there as far as any of the news about all this goes. And
well, let me quickly just read a bit from this article for the listeners about Terry Bean, just to catch him up, because they might not know. I didn't know who he was till you sent me the article.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So from this article, Terry Bean, the Oregon gay rights pioneer and leading Democrat fundraiser, re-indicted on sex abuse charges. Charges of sexually abusing a 15-year-old boy were previously dismissed in 2015. Terry Bean, the civil rights pioneer and Democratic Party fundraiser, has again been indicted on sexual abuse charges stemming from an alleged 2013 incident for which charges were previously dismissed. Now, I'll just read that for now, and the listeners can go and look at it. But I wanted to do that to just give them a bit of an introduction to who this man is. I've read the article and I've looked at what you sent me. And this is the man that is connected with Rosenblum, right?
Yeah, he contributed to Rosenblum's campaign. Mm-hmm. He contributed to, I think, the governor of Oregon's campaign. She's this lesbian woman.
Really? No.
I think he did. I'm not sure on that. I'd have to go back and verify that.
No, I'm just being sarcastic about her being a lesbian.
Oh, right. Yeah. But he contributed to the. I know he contributed to the one of the city government officials there. He contributed to her campaign, and she is she's former Navy, and she's very like black. She was very involved with like Black Lives Matter. and very social justicey.
Hmm.
What is her name? Um, but yeah, and she is also friends with this guy who they're part of the same church and everything, who admitted to sexually abusing a minor, who was, I think, his sister, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember for sure on that, but um, her name is Joanne Hardesty, and you can if you can look up for anybody interested, say, in what happened with Andy No. I'm not a big fan of Andy No. I think he pushes some pretty I don't know, like, just the other side of leftist politics. Like he promotes eugenics on his website. If I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
and he doesn't really, like, if you watch the video of him on Joe Rogan,
Hmm.
he claims to know a lot about Antifa. He doesn't know shit.
Toe Rogan.
Yeah. Andy No was on Joe Rogan recently after he got milkshaked. And
Oh, I don't watch Toe Rogan because Owen Benjamin told me not to.
well, yeah, if Owen Benjamin told you not to, then
You don't. Do you watch Owen Benjamin?
it's been a while. It's been a while since I've watched his videos, but I remember liking him.
He loves the
I,
Jews.
oh well, you know.
Now, what I want you to kind of touch on a little bit more because uh the the Goldstein connection. Let me just pull that up again. The article that I got, or the link that I got from you in the Facebook chats that had the Goldstein connection, was the one from the most disturbing details from the NXIVM sex cult case. So I don't know if that's kind of where you were leading to, but I all I know is that when you're talking about fish and you're talking about Rosenblum and all these characters that are connected, especially, you know, have their connections over there in the Pacific Northwest. Most of the people that are listening probably know what's his name again? Holy fuck! Why am I forgetting his name?
Gus Van Sant.
No, who's the dude that just got busted, man?
Oh, Epstein.
Epstein. I
Yeah.
probably said Goldstein instead. I meant Epstein. Getting my Steins confused here, right?
Yeah.
So, I think most people are familiar with what. Obviously, I mean that's what's been pushed into the mainstream social media front is Epstein, and you're kind of trying to you're piecing together for me even so because I'm learning a lot about this, and I think for the listeners too is the connection between Epstein and these other individuals who have connections to to Portland and the Pacific Northwest.
hmm That's kind of my point.
Right.
Part of my, yeah, and just how the kind of conflict and the kind of extremist sort of elements, really on both sides. It's like, you talk about the Jews fueling both sides uh, of conflicts,
Hmm.
and just for everybody listening, I actually did grow up in a Jewish family. I'm not ashamed.
You shouldn't be, man. You shouldn't be ashamed of that.
I just I'd like to share with you the kind of bullshit that happens with people who are who say they're Jews but are not,
Hmm.
um, like Epstein, and
Yes.
like a lot of other people who play both sides, really.
A lot of Steens and a lot of Bergs.
And and there is a lot of a lot of fueling both sides that goes on in Portland. I haven't looked too deeply into it, but I'm sure it was going on back like in 1999, for example, when the Seattle protests were going on.
Hmm.
That's another big event. There's actually even somebody I've spoken to who took part in those protests who said that there was a conspiracy amongst a lot of people that 9/11 happened in response to those protests,
Wow.
which is something to wrap your brain around. A lot of people listening out there, if they were even alive back then, they probably don't know much about the WTO protests, but I recommend reading about those and reading about why they happened and what was taking place. And really, there's a lot of issues that people who voted for Trump, uh, you know, um, with like big corporations and all that, that they focus on, that are important issues
Hmm.
that they're against. That a lot of people protesting back in 1999 in Seattle um, were also protesting about. They were also there was also a lot of Marxist socialist, pushing from. I mean, there's even a statue of Lenin in Seattle. Um,
Yes, I heard about that, man.
yeah, it's a very. There's a lot of. It was actually one of the first cities to elect a socialist mayor. That happened just after everything happened with Occupy Wall Street,
Right.
Occupy Seattle. But uh, but yeah, um, there's and I don't know if I don't think it's just the Jews personally fueling both sides. I think they do. I think because they have so much influence in banking, they're funding both sides.
Well,
And they're
if you listen
funding.
to E. Michael Jones, he basically sums it up by saying, "quote unquote," the Jews have the revolutionary spirit. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, the people that are in charge in this sort of weaponized anthropology, the people that are in charge of this program, they call themselves Jews.
Hmm.
That's just a fact. Um, but if you've ever watched any of my talks that I've had with Ed Chiarini on the actor based reality, he knows better than anyone I've ever talked to about these people that call themselves Jews. They just adopted that title. They adopted it for political reasons, and they 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 use it as a sort of get out of jail free card. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I understand that when you're saying that
The the greenies are not Jews, though.
oh, they're Jews.
No,
They call
the
themselves
green
Jews.
movement, the hippie movement, has nothing to do with the Jews. The Jews,
Winona LaDuke, Winona LaDuke is part Jewish. Did
There
you know
you
that?
go. There you go. There you go.
right?
Winona.
But the idea within the hippie movement and the whole environmentalist movement, you don't really see Jewish names. They may latch onto it for political gains and control, but the underpinnings, those on the ground that are pushing the whole environmentalist movement, are more like deracinated white people
Yeah,
and the ones that are more secular. So
absolutely.
I wouldn't really say that the Jews are really like pushing that agenda. I think it's just part of on a on the it's one of the organs of the body. Let's put it to you that way.
Well,
But it's
yeah,
not an organ where their Jews are that knee deep into it.
well, no, no.
Versus banks and mortgages and pornography. I think Jews are more involved with pornography than, let's say, the vegan movement, right?
Well, look
So
at look.
you have to put that into perspective when we talk about these things.
Well, look at it this way, man. This is what Owen Benjamin always says. You'll never find a Jewish janitor. See, the people that are doing The people doing the groundwork for the green movement, they're the janitors, man.
What do you
Right, yeah.
call a what do you call a Mexican Jew?
I don't know, man. What do you call it?
A janitor who owns the building.
That's a good one.
Here you go.
That's a good one. But yeah, I do understand what you were talking about there when you kind of segued into a little bit about your past and your history. You know, your cultural religious beliefs. These people, they use Jewish names, they use the Jewish identity, but they're not Jews by faith. Let's say, is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, they don't follow the Torah teachings.
No, no, they
When
don't.
you look at people like maybe he would do. I don't know if he'd do an interview with you sometime. I can't speak for him, but look at Rabbi Oliver's videos on the Red Pill Religion channel, and listen to him, and talk about for example, the view of Satan in the Torah, and you listen to him talk about how a lot of the people who are on the left, that you can kind of consider them to be sort of Sabbatian, like they follow Sabbatai Sevi's sort of path of kind of like pushing this fake messiah,
Right.
this fake messianic consciousness.
Well, look, Aaron. I promised Lamprey I wouldn't talk about religion today.
Oh, okay, cool.
But so
Yeah,
let's.
please, man. Listen, he's Jewish. For someone like I am, and probably a lot of our listeners, I mean, they're absolutely fascinated with Jews, and I just think it's hysterical because, like, he's a Jew. I'm like, dude, I'll go up the corner and go say hello and talk to Jews. It's like not that big of a deal for me.
Okay,
We can get a rabbi on. I don't need to go to a rabbi. There's a synagogue around the corner. I'll get him on the live stream now.
I'll just leave it at this as far as our what we were talking about as far as the Jews go, and people who are ethnic Jews versus people who actually follow the teachings of the Torah.
Okay.
Sidney Gottlieb was one of the founders of Project MK Ultra, which is the main sort of project, the main government project that pushed weaponized anthropology. And Sidney Gottlieb is an ethnic Jew. Did he actually did he actually push the teachings of the Torah? Well, no. And it's funny though, he used there's a lot of Kabbalistic principles that are invoked through weaponized anthropology. For example, and this isn't religion.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Just to let you know, Lamprey, it's not exactly religion because it's more mysticism. So if you want to get all technical, but
No, I just boiled it down to this.
the Kabbalah, he used it inverted, like the inverted tree of life, for example, the tree of death. They use a lot of these inverted truth concepts that are associated with the Kabbalah and inverted Kabbalism. And they push that, like the whole "do as thou wilt," for example. That's like inverted Kabbalah, basically.
Yeah, it's the upside down. It's the man. You see it in the speech, in the speak, and in the politics, and in the conditioning. They take what is good, and they reverse it.
Trannies to the left of me, and neocons to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with Jews.
Yes. Yeah, man. They do. They reverse it. They take what's good and they turn it upside down.
But unfortunately for our friend, I mean, he originated from the Northwest, which means he's kind of like a watered down Jew at this point.
Yeah,
Now he's embracing veganism, and he's pro sustainability.
It's not from New York, man.
Veganism
Just
is a
popping
slave
acid,
diet. Veganism is
doing
so,
acid, and
they're pushing veganism.
yeah.
Veganism is huge in Portland too.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's another thing.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
That's another thing. A lot of the there's a lot of animal rights uh, enthusiasts, advocates, whatever you want to call them, associated with Antifa, and like like factory farming is fascist. Just straight up, it's fascist. If you support factory farms, you are supporting fascism. You're evil. You're like a capo,
Yeah.
working for the Nazis, and damn you to hell. You should feel so guilty that you should just start eating vegan now, because veganism will save the world.
Yeah.
And this message brought to you by UNESCO.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's who's controlling these idiots, basically, at the end of the day. So, and there's a lot of anti-UN people in Israel, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard that
A lot of
actually.
Jews too, who
Yeah.
are very much against the UN because they're pushing a lot of very anti-Jewish propaganda.
Well, let's get back. Let's get back to this. The Steins.
Anyway,
You know,
yeah,
Stein
yeah,
is German for stone, and a lot of the modern Jewish names that exist, quote unquote Jewish names that exist in the Americas today are, surprise, surprise, German. And anyway, that just gives you a bit of an insight of where these people came from. These Steins and these Bergs. Berg means mountain in German, and that's where it gives you an idea. These quote unquote Jews with German names are all living in America now, and they all are now. Well, a lot of their fruits are being shown. A lot of the fruits of their labors are being shown. So let's get back to the Stein and what we were talking about
yeah,
before.
yeah. Epstein.
Yeah,
There's a PSU. Okay, so Amazing Polly has a really great video. She has a lot of great videos on this, but there's one in particular where she talks about. It's called Pedo Professor Connection and Nexium Human Experiments, and she brings up about, I don't know, 10 or 15 different people in that video. One of them is this chemistry professor from PSU. He was charged on 35 counts, I think it is.
Yeah, I got him right here.
Counts.
PSU professor who posted child pornography on his blog gets 2.5 years. Is that the same one?
Yeah. Yeah, Lehman is his last name. That's a Jewish last name
Yes,
too.
Lehman.
If
German
not
name.
to say all Jews are pedophiles or not, but it just when I guess Nazis in Germany, there is people who were ethnic Jews working with Nazis, and I kind of liken it to a modern day version of that. Really, Epstein is just only now the power dynamics have shifted. So now it's not like you have to have like a Nazi Germany. You can have all these different corporations, and you can have all these different private philanthropic organizations, and you can have all these shell companies and such. They function more behind the scenes, but they essentially still function in the same way Nazis did. And Amazing Polly gets into how the Nexium the people involved with Nexium had this weird I don't know what you would call it, this weird philosophy they went by or something, that they were all reincarnated Nazis and such. And like there's a guy named Ranieri, Michael Ranieri. I forgot his first name. Jeffrey. I can't remember his first name offhand, but he's sort of like the head of Nexium, or he was like running a lot of what was going on. Let me just see if I can bring up his name.
On that note, while you're looking that up quickly, I just wanted to point out when you mentioned, like, what did you say, coming back as Nazis? You really need to go back and listen to my chats with Ed Chiarini. Maybe one day I'll have you on with him, because a big part of what he talks about, and this is something that isn't really talked about in a lot of the mainstream conspiracies, because Ed's in a world of his own. And he talks about how, and he shows evidence. He shows evidence through photographs and biometrics that a lot of the Nazi officers of World War II came over to America after the war, adopted Jewish names, and went into media, pornography, banking, etc., etc. Just putting that out there for you, because I don't know if Amazing Polly talks about that or knows about it, but it is a very interesting side note to check out at some point.
Sounds intriguing. It's almost reminds me of would have been something associated with Project Paperclip.
Paperclip is a name that people use sort of in the mainstream conspiracy. I don't know if Ed associates that same name or not, but I do know that he has very compelling photographic and biometric evidence that that these are the same people, exact same individuals that were these Nazi officers, came over to America, took on Jewish names, and now and Berg was a big one. Berg was a big one. Stein was another big one. So, anyway.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, Keith Raniere is the Nexium. He's the founder of Nexium, and there's kind of this indirect relationship with this chemistry professor who was fired from PSU, who with Keith Raniere, and yeah, and it's through a guy named Martin Novak, who worked with Harvard for some science project associated with Harvard about studying evolution, something that has to do with evolution. I'll track down. It's he was the program director, or the director of the program for evolutionary dynamics at Harvard University. Who knows what kind of actual? I mean, there's all kinds of evidence that a lot of these children who were trafficked and who are coming out and coming out with their experiences about being trafficked, and a lot of these people, this has been ongoing. This has been happening for years and years and years. It's just coming out in the news now for different reasons.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people who are coming out, it seems to be hinting towards, they were part of different experimental projects associated with these, universities and all of the different science projects that Epstein was funding.
Interesting, man.
And they do that a lot with other institutions. In Portland, for example, there's, and I'm not saying social workers there are all guilty of child pedophilia and human trafficking. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
But I'm sure a lot of this does go on. And I'm sure that, in terms of normalizing, sexual deviant behavior, and pushing, kind of using homeless people and um, uh, using disenfranchised people to help push the LGBT agenda, because it 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 it, it basically equates to less hungry mouths to feed, and that sort of thing for all the wealthy people who are paying taxes and such. Um, they use a lot of different institutions, that are set up to, help the homeless. There's in Portland, for example, there's a place there called the Outside Inn, where a lot of homeless people go to for medical needs because they can't afford a doctor, and so they go there and they get their condoms, and they get, I think I don't remember if they were doing a needle exchange program. They may have been at one point. But there's all these different, virtuous, I'm quoting, quote, virtuous, unquote,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, things that they do to help homeless people and people who can't afford to get help at any other, through a doctor and such.
Just like they help the unborn and the children without parents. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. In the same way, Planned Parenthood helps, uh, you know, um,
Family planning.
family planning, right?
Yes.
Right,
It's fucking
right.
backwards, man. It's
Yeah, something else I wanted to mention earlier. By the way, just speaking of Planned Parenthood,
mhm.
is one of the most dystopian moments of my life, where I really started waking up from all the liberal brainwashing, and really starting to I guess be red pilled, was traveling. And maybe you could talk about this, as far as I've heard you guys talk about it on another video,
Mhm.
where you were looking at different pictures that of advertisements and things like that, and how they were being used as propaganda for all this. Um, Kind of a similar sort of feeling, where I was riding on a light rail train, and I saw there's an advertisement for Planned Parenthood
Mhm.
on this light rail train that I was riding, and it really hit me that, well, who are they targeting here, as far as the people, as far as it being propagandized
Mhm.
to people. They're targeting people who are riding on this light rail train, who don't have money for a car, most likely,
Yep.
who can only afford public transportation, and and they're basically telling everybody that they should support Planned Parenthood, and that they should do all their family planning through Planned Parenthood.
Well, here's a good point as far as target audience, because what you're talking about is a lot of the pictures that Lamprey has been sharing about what he sees on the subway in New York, and when it comes to that kind of advertising and a target audience, what I'll ask Lamprey this: what do you think is the daily percentage of people, of the population on that train and that are in their cars?
What do you mean?
Like,
Oh, you're talking about like in the five boroughs of like New
sure,
York?
sure.
Oh, it's probably maybe 60-70% are using public transit.
Well, there you go. Target audience is
It's
70%,
more than half.
more than half are targeted, because and so it obviously is advantageous for them to have more people, for whatever reason, not use their cars. And you have to remember too, going back to the green movement, a good way to convince people to not use their cars is tell them that it's killing the earth.
Yeah.
and tax the shit out of it, make gasoline expensive. And once you have an audience that can't, what do they call it? A captive audience.
Hmm.
You can't walk out of off the train until you get to your stop. So you've got a captive audience who is riding the train either because they can't afford it or because they're trying to be environmental. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you can tell what their target audience and their intentions and the how they implement their programming, their weaponized anthropology. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's all very intentional, for sure. Yeah, and I hope everybody listening, will, go out and educate other people about this, and it's like, because it is really just this kind of self-perpetuating feedback loop as far as kind of Hegelian dialectic goes.
Mm,
They create the problem, they create the reaction, and they create the solution.
yeah.
And it's it's horrible. It's just gotten worse and worse.
Well,
And
I
it's
I think
right
that
now.
the most unfortunate thing about that particular situation is that 60 to 70% of people that are, say, riding a subway in the boroughs, uh, they don't know they're being programmed.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah.
I wish people would be more people would become more kind of literate, or whatever. I know I don't like using the word woke, but
Actually, Lamprey wanted to call this talk the Great Awakening.
the greater woke. That's a good one, actually.
I know. It would have fit in perfectly, actually. But no, you're right. And the problem is, have you ever? And I'll ask this question to both of you. Have you ever tried to educate someone who is unaware that they're being indoctrinated?
They get a piece of it. They start to, the lights flickering in their head when you start discussing it.
Yeah,
A lot of the
that,
time, they
that
get angry.
sometimes
You know.
I guess it just depends. It's like, you know if you were telling somebody about uh, about God, who was an atheist, and that, being an atheist, you're basically just allowing yourself to be manipulated by all kinds of other BS. That's kind of, I don't want to talk about religion, right? But
Well, you're
I
making
don't
you're
know
making
how,
a comparison. I understand.
but or somebody who's addicted to heroin,
Hmm.
that heroin is bad and that they're killing themselves. I don't know.
No,
Uh,
that's a good example. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, okay. Again, I'm not talking about religion, but I am going to reference something that was said in my last stream with Sam Garens. I brought up the concept of atheism. I mentioned that most of my viewers are probably atheists. Um, I don't have a problem with that. But it's a MGTOW channel at its roots, and that's kind of the people that are here. Um, and he said, "Oh yeah," I loved his response. He goes, "Yeah, atheists, they're great. They got it half right. There is no God. That's the first part's right, but they're missing the second part. But the one God." And I just
Yeah.
thought, they're
I thought that
halfway
was
there,
great.
man. Fucking halfway there. But seriously though, I understand the comparison you're trying to make, or the analogy you're trying to make, and based on what I asked, the question I asked you guys, um, it when you challenge the fundamental conditioning of an individual, I mean, you can make the analogy of drugs, You can make it the analogy on your political views of the world. But when you challenge that fundamental conditioning of an individual, it is. I understand what Lamprey said, that maybe there's some lights flickering. Maybe if you're a great talker, maybe if you're the next Hitler, you can change their mind. I don't know, but but in my experience, the initial reaction, which I'll use your analogy of drugs, the initial reaction of taking away somebody's drug is usually pretty angry and aggressive.
Yeah, it just depends on how you do it. Just if you're telling them that, I don't know. I've had a lot of conversations like that with people, where they didn't know, they weren't aware of what was going on with social conditioning and propaganda and all that, and I guess I guess it just depends on the way you communicate. If I liken it to, it's like the idea of being told what to think versus thinking for oneself.
Yeah.
Being able to think, being able to learn how to think. I think there's a lot of virtue in being able to kind of empower people to learn how to think.
Well, you know who was really good at that, and I mentioned it just 30 seconds ago. Was Hitler was great at that.
Well,
not Walt Disney. Hitler was great at that.
He was, but he was more about indoctrinating people into Nazi.
Right, yeah. He's teaching them to be indoctrinated.
But he was a great speaker. That's my whole point. Like the guy,
he's a great speaker, but he wasn't all about.
His intentions were bad.
People to learn how to think. He was teaching people. He was more about telling people what to think.
So his intentions were bad, but his delivery was fantastic.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So that's one thing we could learn from that man. Delivery.
Delivery.
Yeah. Obama. Obama's very good.
Z. Kyle.
Obama is way better than Trump.
Trump's just he's just good at like one-liners.
Yeah, rhetoric.
Yeah, he's good at rhetoric.
I'll admit something to everybody, everybody who's listening, that
he voted Obama.
I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, because it helps me with doing these YouTube videos. I actually sort of cried when Obama was elected.
Out of like terror.
First time or the second time?
I fell for the hypnosis. I did.
Really?
The first 2009 or 2012? Be specific.
2008. Not two. I didn't vote for him in 2012. I got past the hypnosis by that time. But in 2008, I totally fell for the hypnosis. There was other things going on too. I've been going through some heavy grieving and things like that. But I also, I also thought it was, really amazing. It was our first black president. Typical reason why people. I actually voted for him too. I did. Wow. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I did, and I was very. I think there is a lot of indoctrination that happens to people, not just, but all kinds of people who grow up in single family households, for example, that they may not necessarily view as indoctrination. They may not necessarily understand how it all works, how they're being indoctrinated. But like, one good example I can give you was I grew up, with my father wasn't around most of my life, and I watched a lot of nature documentaries. And one of the documentarians I really liked was David Attenborough.
Yeah, now, I know who David Attenborough is. Yeah.
Now, I just saw an article from like 2013 where he's talking about how humans are basically a cancer on this planet, and we're all causing, climate change, and
Oh God.
something needs to be done about the world's population. And uh, that happens, it when it's a very common thing, I think, with people who grew up in single parent households. And I think one of the things that I think needs to happen to kind of break this spell, so to speak, is for people to understand how that all works, how all that propaganda works with children who grow up in single family households. Now, like in the case of the like Desmond is amazing, you know,
Ugh.
you think, I'm sure the it's not just sitting in front of a television and listening to somebody talk about how being transgender will save the planet or something. I'm sure it's a lot more than that too. And like, for example, in my case, my mother was really into environmentalism. She donated to the World Wildlife Fund.
You were
I
raised
had
by a single mother?
Yeah, yeah, and I had to red pill her about how the World Wildlife Fund is connected with eugenics. You know, um, and and there's I think a lot of that goes on in terms of the single parents who aren't very religious. Not to bring up religion
It's okay.
exactly, but
It's
but
okay.
but but to bring up non irreligion, and to bring up what people replace it with in terms of the public good and societal good, and all these things that can be seen as virtuous in terms of saving the environment, in terms of you know um, uh, saving the planet, in terms of making sure that humans don't destroy the planet, and
Idolatry.
yeah, it's it's we're heavily propagandized.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. That is the look, you're a Jew, I'm a Muslim. Religion's going to come up whether Lamprey likes it or not. Um, but I agree with you. The reason why idolatry is considered like the number one sin is exactly for those reasons. You replace something that is um, completely outside of yourself and perfect, with something that is imperfect and very finite. And when you do that, then you get your Kool-Aid acid tests. You get your save the planet, don't hurt the animals. Everything falls apart at that point.
Yeah,
So I absolutely agree with you on that aspect.
yeah. Here's a good one with environmentalism and atheism and all this other stuff.
Veganism,
Then
isms.
you know, as long as you're a good eco citizen, then 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 it's fine. It doesn't matter anything else that you do. It's fine, just as long as you're a good eco citizen.
Hmm. Absolutely, man. Well, and going back a bit, you said you were raised by a single mother, and I've said this 1,000 times on our channel, is that I think the number one, the biggest pariah, the biggest fall into the sin of idolatry is uh, the single mother and the replacement of the father with the state. I think so many of our ills can be traced back to that. And which is why, as an individual who likes to talk about the things we're talking about today, if a politician, regardless of the color they wear, does not bring that up, then they're garbage. They don't want to fix anything.
Mhm.
So, no, I understand. And I almost cried when I heard you cried over Obama.
Cried is like face palm.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Good. That's good. I commend you, man. I fully commend. Who did you vote for in 2000?
I'm not. I don't. Well, I have an American passport, so technically I could vote, but I've never voted in an American election. Um, when Obama was elected, I was living in Indonesia, and I laughed hysterically. I just couldn't believe it. I could
Well,
not believe it.
I made up for that by voting for Ross Perot when I was 18. So
Okay.
at least I voted for Ross Perot. But one of the ways I think if there's one experience that happened with me that I think definitely if it hadn't happened, there's a lot now that I probably wouldn't understand quite as much. And there was a guy who told me about Brave New World, the book by Aldous Huxley, which you can find. You can read it in its entirety online, and it basically lays out everything that's going on now with all the mega cities, with the propaganda, the anti-family, all of it, and it also there's also parts in there about kind of pushing drug. They call it the soma, pushing the soma on people to kind of get them to go along with the narrative in a way. And there's a guy who told me about that book back when I was living in Portland. I don't remember exactly when it was, probably like the early 2000s, late 90s. I moved there in like 97.
Hold on a second. How old are you?
I'm 44.
You're the same age as me. I didn't know how old you were. I was assuming you were younger.
Yeah. And yeah, that guy, if he hadn't, I think him telling me about that book was like being able to learn about that book. And I read Brave New World Revisited, but it was still pretty similar to Brave New World, and there was a lot in it that kind of got me to really think. And then seeing Mike Rupert speak at Portland State University was the other big one just after 9/11. Mike Rupert had some politics that I think were less to be desired, and there's a lot of people who say that the intelligence community got to him, which I think is probably true. But as far as his presentation, and you could see it, it's called on YouTube, it's called The Truth and Lies of 9/11, and it's Mike Rupert speaking at Portland State University.
Oh, okay.
In November of 2001, and he gets in to all of all the crap we're basically hearing about in the news with Epstein and all the other people who are connected. And and really it's not just Epstein. It is true that Jews are scapegoated. There's probably somebody else that did a lot worse than Epstein did, who we don't even know about, who probably has a lot more money than Epstein. But Epstein is being scapegoated through the media. He still did some pretty heinous crap, obviously. He still has a lot of influence and a lot of wealth, and he was able to buy his way out of his responsibility. But he is still, I think, probably to some extent being scapegoated, because I think the people who control the media still like to scapegoat.
Well,
Whatever.
if it's in the media, man, it's being controlled. That's what everyone
Yeah.
needs to understand. So regardless of what that man did, the only reason we know about it is because our controllers want us to know about it.
Yep, exactly.
That's it. All right. Now I don't know if that benefits Epstein or not. I have no idea. I don't know the wizardry and the magic that these people play is beyond me. So I don't know. But if it's in the media, they want us to not only know about it, but keep talking about it. You know that. So you're right. I mean, he's obviously a scapegoat because he's there. What's the end game? Um, who's involved? I don't know, but as long as you know how the machine works, you understand how the cogs and wheels turn, then you know that if it appears in front of your face, then it's there for a reason and it's not an accident. All right. I mean, nature is very mysterious in how it functions, but the man-made media is not. It's very transparent in its function, and that is to condition, to change the opinions of the masses, etc., etc. So
It is public relations.
it,
Media
it,
is public relations.
it always has been.
Yeah.
I love how people think that the invention of the television was some kind of great stride for communications of mankind. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. It was invented for a very specific purpose. There was a lot of money, effort, sweat, blood, and tears put behind that for a purpose. Same with the internet.
Yeah, there's a great series that if you go to the Logos Media channel on YouTube, and you may have issues with Logos Media, I am,
Why is
but
that?
because they criticize Islam,
Oh,
but
fuck. I don't care.
but there's some really good videos on, like, there's one. I don't remember if it's just one video or if it's a series. I think it might be a series, but it's the secret history of FM radio, and
Oh, yeah.
gets into how FM radio is basically used intentionally to propagandize people, to break through the walls, so to speak, and get into people's homes.
Yeah.
And,
Well, if you go back into the history of a lot of the media, not just Hollywood, but you're right, the radio as well. Obviously, a lot of if you go into the names of the people who were pioneering that industry, they were obviously all Muslims.
yeah, no doubt.
But no, seriously, yeah, it's all of that, all of these. Okay, the advancement of technology since the industrial age has always been for the benefit of the control for a minority of people that had the capital to make it work. Um, we don't have the utopian future that was always advertised to us after the industrial age. It doesn't exist because the next greatest technological advance is the next evolution of the phone that you use. It's not a cure for a disease. It's not anything else. It's faster Wi-Fi and a better phone. That's it. So you know what the intention of these advances are.
Well, how much do you think, for example, okay, and I will straight out say Jews, as far as they do, they have a huge amount. I mean, and it's true when people say Jews own the media. There are, ethnic Jews, at least, like Ray Kurzweil.
Yes.
Ethnic Jew. Does he follow the Torah? No,
No,
he doesn't. He's not an Orthodox Jew,
but he
but
uses the name.
And Ray Kurzweil is what the head of. He works with Google, So it's not just the media; it's like, Google. And he's a transhumanist,
Yeah, of course he is.
and he's a good example, actually of what I brought up earlier, as far as how how kind of this fake sort of messianic consciousness is associated with the sort of with the Jews who say they are Jews but are not, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he developed he coined, I think, the term the singularity, right?
Yes.
And the singularity is, in a way, kind of sort of techno-utopianist sort of messianic consciousness.
Yeah.
It's weird like that.
It is, and go when you. It's okay to say the Jews. It's okay. Like, I'm okay with it. I know that in leftist media it makes you anti-Semite, but it's okay to say it. And I love Michael Jones's response to a lot of his content when he says the Jews, the Jews. People are like, how can you say the Jews? You're being anti-Semitic. And he goes, okay, well, who bombed Pearl Harbor? Who?
Was the Japanese.
Exactly.
So are we being anti-Japanese when we say
Exactly.
Japanese from Pearl Harbor?
Exactly. Right? So it's not, I mean, you can say the Muslims too. It's not, it's this wordplay, it's this doublespeak. It's part of the weaponized anthropology that's happening. And I think the biggest mistake the Jews made was conflating religion with ethnicity.
I would agree.
They went too far. They went way too far. And now it's starting to happen to the Muslims, because now if you criticize the Muslims, they call you a fucking racist.
Yep. And now Muslims have CARE. They have you have the Muslim lobby. Just like you have the. Yeah, that's another thing I was going to bring up too. Was how lobbying plays into all this. I mean, if you think about the Jewish lobby, or if you think about just lobbying in general, lobbying from big pharma, lobbying from whoever, they're paying politicians. It's like, I think there is some truth. I'm not a fan of green politics or the Green Party, but they bring up some truthful kind of observations about politics, and I remember just going back to Jello Biafra, back when he thought that I think I remember him saying he thought that politicians should be forced to wear like jackets like race car drivers do, showing
That was
all
Jesse Ventura said that.
was it? I think
Yeah.
because I think both of them may have actually said it, but whoever it was who said that they should be forced to wear like jackets that show all the groups who are lobbying, who get them into power. I think that would be interesting, and yeah, if you think about all of the groups who are lobbying and all of their religious affiliations, it's there's all kinds of different religious affiliations they have, and does it take away from any sort of
It's only two people. If you're talking about the president, it's only two people. So there's going to be huge amount on one side and a huge amount on the other. And there's only one group you dislike out of one or the other. You still got to abide by whatever else that politician is in favor for, whoever's sponsoring them. So having only two political parties is a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
The country's too big. That's all. I have nothing. I know absolutely nothing about Washington or Oregon, nor will I ever visit those places. They're far distant lands, and
They're
with
pretty nice, actually.
yeah, I'm sure they're nice. But for me, it's like you speak English, I speak English. It's not really all that exciting to me to me and visit. And it's still in America. There's still the same fucking rules. It's still the same bullshit. The only thing that's changing is like the type of squirrel you have over there,
The landscape.
and landscape is really the only thing that really would be different to me. But like if you look at like the problem with immigration, like we could be getting invaded right now. Like hordes and hordes of people could be flooding over. You're not gonna notice it because the country's so big. If you lived in a small little area and out of nowhere a bunch of fucking Japanese people showed up, there's gonna be a huge fight because there's not enough space for you to be here. But because America is so large and because let's say Washington State's so far away from me, I don't give a fuck what happens over there in Washington State. Like California's homeless problem is so foreign to me because I have no, I can't see it. I can't personally verify it. Therefore, I don't really give a flying fuck about it.
I think that's one reason why a lot of Europeans don't really get North America. They don't understand the vast distances between the people that live
Right?
in the same
Why
country.
is Italy fucking stoning African people right now? Oh, it's because look, Italy's mad small, and you gotta fucking go because I'm already poor, and you're showing up poor, and you're expecting me you're expected to live here when I'm already poor. Like it's like countries like Greece and Spain. Yeah, Greece, Spain, and Italy are just like yeah. There's Germany over there. Here's a water bottle. Keep walking to Germany. Those stupid fucking losers up there, It's
Hey,
the
you
truth.
know what? Just be careful. It could get to be like Ecotopia there in New York.
No, it won't.
They're
Not
trying.
happening.
They're trying.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
send you the rain garden
Yeah, the rain
to my
gardens, man.
office. Yeah,
AOC's
okay.
rain gardens. Come
I
on.
just, everyone just laughs at it. Like this is the stupidest fucking thing ever, and people throw trash in it out of just disrespect on how stupid it is.
But they're not shitting in it yet, and that's good.
It's too cold here to shit.
Well, summertime they could all shit in the rain gardens.
I caught one guy taking a dump at like 12 o'clock at night. I think he had diarrhea. And I was like, all right, it happens if you have diarrhea and you're walking. But yeah, I actually thought there'd be more rooftop gardens by now in New York. I honestly thought the green agenda would be much more prevalent by now in New York State, and it's not because there's way more corruption on the East Coast than there is on the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, what is the difference between the East and the West Coast? If you could sum it up, I'm going to ask Lamprey this. If you could sum up the difference between the East and the West Coast of the United States in a very
Old
short phrase,
old world, old world, and new world.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, that's accurate.
Yeah, that does make sense. Because I'm a
Like I'm only second generation, and everyone else around me second or first generation immigrants from whatever country. So we have a lot more conservative values when it comes to a lot of things, and like this whole hippie bullshit. You don't see it here. I don't know anybody who's all Rastafarian and shit because everyone's gonna look at you like you're a fucking freak, and no one wants to talk to you. That's versus my brother. My brother's in Asheville, North Carolina, and he says everyone's like into Grateful Dead and smoke weed, kind of again this Portlandia, what we're discussing tonight. In New York, it's kind of segregated to just a handful of fucking transplants that live in Manhattan off of mommy and daddy's money, and who are interns at the Environmental Protection Agency to install the rain garden. That's all.
Yeah, and actually I relate a little bit more to Aaron on as far as the demographics are concerned because um, I was born in LA and I moved to to the western part of Canada. I still have family on the west coast, so I know the west. I know the new world of America, but I'm very, very unfamiliar with the old world of the East. So, yeah, so that makes me understand a lot better what you just said, Lamprey.
And there's something
West Coast is very foreign to me.
there's
Disneyland.
also something it it's you've brought it up before, Lamprey, about how when people settle in different is the further what is it the further west people go as far as settling, um, the it kind of changes people's
You're not as rooted. You're not as tied
behavior.
to your ethnic bond. You're not as tied down to whatever religious group you're with.
Right.
That's then again I correlate that with what's happening in Vancouver, where and maybe just the Canadian mindset where it's much more passive. I mean, Ayam's a really nice person. He's never really confronted me on anything. He's a generally nice person. Where I've had a couple of my friends on who are just very abrasive and in your face and like you're a fucking retard. Get away from me. It's
I
you
still
shut your
like him though.
mouth. Yeah, I know, but to me, it's embarrassing because I understand where you come from, and that's very frowned upon. Where here, it's quite acceptable to be like that.
Right. Yeah.
I got
Uh,
to take a couple of minutes, a break for a couple of minutes.
well, we might as well put it to an end here, man. We're almost at 2.5 hours. Um, I just want to go. Do you have to take a piss or something?
Yeah, I actually did want to take a bathroom
Okay,
break.
go take a piss then. Yeah, I don't
All
want
right.
to go take a piss. Yeah, we're getting on the 2.5 hour mark, so we'll shut it down pretty soon here. We'll let Aaron take a piss. Uh, I see that Warrior has been vigilant in the chats. Got rid of someone. Hey, Victor, it looks like you brought a troll along with you here, and they're gone. Um, Maybe I'll go. What I'll do is I'll go through a couple of my some of the. Okay, so this question was asked to me, Lamprey, and I'm sorry, but this was asked to me. Um, right a couple of minutes ago. I said I was going to answer it near the end of the chat. We are going to end it soon. He says, I am serious. Does Islam not call for submission to their belief? I know you say you're a follower, just trying to understand it. First of all, uh, I don't follow the religion of Islam. I've mentioned that many, many times. You'll hear it in the last chat I had. So I do not follow this religion that calls itself Islam. And I often call it Islamism or Mohammedism. I don't follow that religion. However, if you're maybe pertaining to what Islam means, it is a very simple Arabic noun that means submission. That's what Islam means. So if you translate the word Islam, it means submission. It's an abstract noun. That's all it is. And when it means submission to God and God alone. So the definition of the word Islam does not mean submission to the belief of a religion. It just simply means submission, period. So I hope that answers your question.
So you don't believe the way of Muhammad?
Depends on what you mean by that, because
Do you accept Muhammad as the prophet?
no, I don't need to, because I only have to believe in God. You see, that's you're talking about Islamism. I don't follow Islamism. I don't follow that shit. I know that Muhammad was a prophet, so was Jesus, but I don't need to accept them as a prophet. I just simply have to submit to God and God alone. And if I say that to any brand Islam listening, they'll get pissed off at me.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like you're a Muslim then.
No, I am, by the definition of the word. You see, that's the difference. By the definition, you have to understand when you say Muslim, that's just an Arabic word. That's like saying, "Oh, so you're not a human?" It's it's an Arabic word that has a meaning. It's
The
not.
word of God, the
No,
word of God in Islam comes from Muhammad.
no, it doesn't. What are you talking about?
Dude, the whole point of the Quran was written while Muhammad was alive.
Yes, yes.
Right, so they derived off of Muhammad's teachings.
No, not his teachings. Muhammad was a messenger. So was all the other prophets. They were delivering a message. It didn't come from them. They were a conduit. That's all. They're just a conduit.
Hey, you guys.
Yeah, I got nothing. All right, he's back.
But anyway, you want to do a Muslim talk another day, and we will. So don't worry
Yeah,
about
but
that.
if I want to do a Muslim show, you're changing the definition of what being a Muslim is to
I'm not
suit
changing it.
whatever you feel comfortable.
No, I'm defining it based on the language that it was written in. That's not changing anything. That's how it was. That's the definition of the language it was written in. So I'm not
You're
changing
just a
anything.
religious person that follows Islam.
No, I'm not religious. I'm a, I'm a
This-
I'm a
And this
deist.
is why I don't like talking religion.
Well, not to
I
me.
don't
What you need to do is you got to
to
find it.
anyone.
You got to find an imam, or you got to find one of your Jewish buddies on the streets of New York that wear a tiny hat, and then you got to talk to them because they'll be able to answer all your religious questions.
Bagel eating, tiny hat wearing.
Jews have a much better grasp on the Old Testament than Christians do. I do know that.
Well, it's where it came from.
Yeah,
Yes.
so they definitely like if there's a part of the Old Testament I don't understand, I would definitely turn to a Jew for
Yes.
a interpretation of it.
Go to a Jew or a Muslim. Don't go to a Christian. Actually, Muslims have a better understanding of the Old Testament than Christians do.
That makes
100%.
no sense.
What do you
Why
mean?
makes you say that?
Because I've read the Quran. Read it. It's
It
easy.
is very, very, very similar.
Yes, just read it.
I've read it too.
Like it's like if you read the Quran, you'll understand exactly what I just said. Why do Muslims have a better understanding of the Old Testament? Because there's a huge part of the entire Quran dedicated to Moses and his entire experience. It's there. So yes.
Problem I've discussed this with you as far as religion goes. It's a very subjective topic, and people kind of suit the religion. Now, again, this is you're going to may disagree with me on this, but a lot of people will suit it to their own liking on whatever their religious the buffet religion.
Yes.
It's like I'm going to pick and choose which parts I like, and I don't. I really don't like discussing religion that much because people pick and choose what they like about it. You're saying you're a Muslim, but you don't agree that Muhammad is the prophet
No,
from the Quran.
I think he was the prophet of God. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. All I'm
Well,
saying,
follow
I don't like. Again, this is something. This is why I had the talk with Sam, is because a lot of people. This is something that's not talked about a lot, and that's why people don't understand it. Is that there's a difference between the religion that's created from the message, and the message itself. That there's a huge disconnect between it.
But the message you said came from God,
Yes.
right? But then it needs to be interpreted from God to through whom, which was Muhammad.
Not interpreted, just it's like if I wrote a note and I told you to read it to somebody else. Are you interpreting it, or you're just relaying it?
Relaying it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So I don't. I said it.
But Muhammad relayed the message from God.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
So
All right.
so
Now
so
we're
did Moses.
right, but now we're okay. But we know Muhammad was a real person versus Moses,
Well,
which is
yeah.
harder to define.
Yeah. I suppose. I suppose.
Right. So this is again, now you start moving along, and that you start this locomotive starts picking up steam, and then it starts into a huge fight because you don't talk about religion. You see.
Oh, that's why you don't want to talk about religion.
Yeah, because it's just going to wind up in a fight. No matter what, when you start talking religion, it's going to end in an argument. Politics, there's a more of a meeting of the minds. Religion, always going to end in a fight,
I
no matter.
agree. I have absolutely agree.
So, which is why I truly do not want to discuss religion.
Look, I said this. I said this when I talked to Sam Gerrans, and I'll say it again. God does not need a religion, but any religion must have a God. If you can understand that statement, you'll know where I'm coming from. Most people don't because they wrap up their minds. They've conflated the concept of religion with a creator or the concept of a God. They can't separate those two things. Even atheists can't. They just can't do it. They can't separate the concept of a religion with that of of a creator. They can't do it. So
But you're creating your own religion in that regards.
no, not at all. That's the opposite of religion.
But you're just stating you want to have your own God, but no religion.
No. I'm saying God exists without religion. Can you agree with that statement?
Sure, but whose religion is that now? That's your own religion.
No, that's not a religion. You have to apply religion. You have to define religion. What is religion? Okay, I'll try to do my best to try to define what religion is. Religion is not God. Number one, do you agree with that statement?
Correct.
Religion is not God. So now we have to define what religion is. Religion is a series of rituals and dogma that attaches itself to the concept of a creator. I do not apply myself to religion. I don't apply myself to a series of dogma and ritual that needs a creator in order for it to exist. Because without a God, you cannot have religion. But you can still believe in and understand the concept of a God without having dogma, ritual, and all other things that come when it's involved in religion. So we really have. That's the thing.
Yeah, but the fundamentals of your thinking has already been deeply rooted in religion, so it's a little bit hard for you to break from that thought.
Not mine. I wasn't born into a religious family.
But you eventually became religious.
Well, I didn't become religious. I just became a Muslim because I got married. Right? I mean, I became a Muslim, I guess, in the religious aspect because I got married. So I had, I just went through the ritual. Okay, now I'm a Muslim. But I wasn't a religious person, not by birth, not by growing up. I mean, Aaron might have a different experience because he was born into a Jewish family. I wasn't. I wasn't born into a Muslim family. But I did.
Well, let's go back to, again, you're Canadian that lives closer to the West Coast. We're tying this all back into people that are moved further and further away from their ethnic backgrounds, and it was obviously more susceptible to you to convert to Islam when you moved to a foreign country.
Yes, I converted out of. Well, I had no choice. If I was to marry the woman I married, and of course later divorced, so it was all.
Yes, but you submitted to a woman. You had to change your belief in your background.
But I didn't have a belief in the beginning. I didn't have to convert because I didn't belong.
There's the problem off the bat.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Now I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. You're right. You're right. Because if Aaron went to Indonesia and met a nice young Muslim woman and wanted to get married to her, I bet you he wouldn't have converted to Islam.
Right.
Because he already had some kind of root in his beliefs and culture. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. You take some child of a boomer, no beliefs, no religious beliefs, no real concept of a God. Throw them into that mess, and yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Something that's interesting, that relates to this conversation is now religion, the way I understand it, it also involves community.
Yes, you're right.
And there's a passage from Matthew 18 in the New Testament that it I can't remember the see it's the English Standard Version. It says for where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I among them.
Mm-hmm.
And it refers to what basically qualifies as a church.
You know what? I absolutely agree with you, Aaron, and that's the one thing that I did not mention in my definition of religion. It does pertain to community. And to be honest with you, in my experience, that is the best part of the concept of religion,
Hmm.
is the community of it. I
Yep.
100% agree with you. A community that rallies around the concept of a creator.
Yeah,
100%.
I think that's what a lot of people who are religious are craving too, is a sense of community.
Yes, yes. And I think a lot the other parts of what is defined as religion. And this is the thing. I think you can have a community that is that comes together under the concept of a creator without the dogma and ritual that truly defines religion. It puts the fine edges on it. I really believe that. And I think you can have a community of people who believe in God or a creator that can maintain the structure of a community, but they don't have to submit to. Oh, this is one other part I forgot to mention about the definition of religion. The dogma and the ritual that comes along with religion is often what you need for it to exist is a third party to interpret your experience with your creator. Very important part of religion. You need a third party, and that third party is your imams, your rabbis, and your priests. You can't have a religion without those things.
So, do you agree that there is no God but Allah, and is Muhammad his prophet?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that
I mean, that from what I understand, that's the first question you always ask a Muslim: Allah, right?
yes,
And
a brand
Muhammad,
Muslim,
and
a religious Muslim,
yeah, but
yes.
a religious Muslim,
Yeah.
right? So, would you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. And I'll tell you
So,
why.
okay, go.
Let me explain why. First of all, that saying is a creation of the third party, the imams. That's nowhere mentioned in Quran that needs to be some kind of saying to make you a Muslim. It's not in the Quran. It's not in the book itself.
I really like how you separate Muhammad from this whole concept of Islam. I think it's hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Because
good.
well, I do
That's
it.
good because you know where that's going to wind up and where this is going to lead.
I do it because that's what the Quran
Then you're not
says.
a real Muslim.
No, I am a real Muslim. They're not real
You
Muslims.
cannot be. Cannot.
Well,
You're
okay.
changing. So you're getting to decide on the definition of
No,
what a
and
Muslim is.
no. Okay, this is the part you're not getting. You realize you're using Islamic words like they're an English word. You need to know what those words actually mean. They're actual real Arabic words. Like it's an Arabic word. It has a meaning. Okay? So when you say there is no God but Allah, that's a contradiction because you're using an English word that has the exact same meaning as the
You
Arabic
don't
word.
speak Arabic, do you?
No, but I know some words because I learned them through studying the Quran and Indonesian language. Indonesian borrows a lot of Arabic words. And what I can tell you is that in the Arabic language, and it's the same in Hebrew. I don't know if Aaron knows any Hebrew, but the word in Arabic for God with a small g. See, in English we use the same word. We say God, but when we want to say the God, we capitalize the G. That's English grammar. In Arabic, it doesn't work that way. In Arabic, any God is illah. Now, if you add the article in Arabic, which is al, which means the, it becomes Allah, which means the God. It is not a fucking name. It is not a proper noun. It's so funny. You're turning the word Allah into like James, like the name of something. It's
The
not a
God.
name. It just means the God. So if you want to properly say it, why mix up the Arabic and the English? Why not say it properly in one language and say there is no God but God? See, that's correct. If you wanted to
One
say it,
God.
or the God, which is one.
Hmm.
There's only one if it's the. I mean, that's grammar. If you wanted to say it correctly in Arabic, you'd say La ilaha aul illah.
Okay, but what about the part where Muhammad is the prophet?
That's not a part of anything. That is part of the third party priests who turned a very simple concept into a religion that is now invading Europe.
Hmm.
Very simple. That's, again, it's all wizardry and magic by the third party religious people. They don't believe in God. If they believed in God, they wouldn't be creating these third parties that say, well, if there's a creator, then you're obviously going to need another.
But the Quran is an interpretation of Muhammad's word, is it not?
No, not at all. No.
You should know I am. Uh, I saw somebody comment about brand Islam being a creation of Zionism.
Well, there is. I
It
know.
just
No, I know a
laughed.
little bit about that actually. I never brought that up when I talked to Sam, but I did bring it up a little bit when I talked to E. Michael Jones, and I mentioned to him this. I don't know a lot about it, but I have done a little bit of research on it in my studies, and I do know that the text, which is almost the text within brand Islam that is called the Hadith, is the equivalent in the Jewish religion of the Talmud, and basically what the Hadith is it is a series of writings that did not become published until 200 to 250 years after Muhammad died. They have nothing to do with the Quran. And the number one author of those books, his name is Bukhari, and he was a Persian Jew who converted to Islam. So, yes, there is some truth to that statement that
Yeah.
brand Islam is a child of Zionism. 100%. So we can thank the
Yeah.
Jews, we can thank the tiny hats. Well, you don't like that word. We can thank
I don't care. I don't. It doesn't really bother me that much.
we can
I think
thank
it's kind of funny.
we can thank the Jews for brand Islam. It's there. And I would go as far as to say we can thank them for the Catholic Church too. I don't want to say that because I know Esme would get pissed off at me.
Well, yeah, and there's also a lot of crossover with. I've read a fair amount about Jewish mysticism and rabbis who wrote about Jewish mysticism, and there's at least a handful who referred to Islamic mystics as well.
Hmm.
So it's like there's been crossover for centuries.
All the brand religions, in my opinion, that exist today, and that includes mainstream Judaism, Catholicism, and brand Islam, were all they took the source, which was God, and corrupted it and turned it into these religions, these world religions.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at in terms of lobbying, right? Like if politics was like a religion,
Yes.
and you have like a Jewish lobby and now a Muslim lobby, and there's also a Christian lobby. And by the way, a lot of people who criticize Israel's lobby may want to understand that more money is actually funneled through Israel from the Christian Zionist lobby
Yes.
than the Israeli lobby. So there's that. Just want to throw that out there.
No, you're
But
absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
but in terms of lobbying in general, what does that do as far as like warping religion into just politics, you know. And
It is the same. It's the same side of the, it's a different side of the same coin.
yeah, it's like you know, when you have all these people who are basically buying politicians to carry out their agenda, at what point does it lose any kind of godliness,
Well,
you
here
know?
the
And you know, at what point, you know, as far as the kind of divide and conquer elements of religion and such, like, yeah, I tend to think a lot of it is more due to people who profit off of the conflict who aren't very religious
yes.
than it is uh, a result of religion itself.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not. See, this is the thing. Okay, making a comparison between politics and religion. In religion, there you have a middleman between you and your creator, which is 100% ridiculous. Not even a prophet can stand between you and that which created you. That doesn't make any sense. Why can I not submit to my creator? Why can it not be just between myself and my creator? Why do I need some fallible man to stand between me with a long beard and a tiny fucking hat?
Because why do you identify with being a Muslim then?
It has nothing to do with them, that's for sure. Now, it's the same in politics. The politician is the middleman that stands between you and your interaction with the free world around you. It's the exact fucking same. You know, truth is truth, man.
But this goes back to you. What the in between is that you identify as a Muslim. It's not you identifying just believing in God.
Well, do you know what Muslim means? It's an actual word.
Submission,
It's
right?
not a name. No, Islam.
Well, it's Islam.
Oh, Islam is submission.
The root
right.
in Arabic, it works on root words. Lam is the root word. You find it in salam, which means peace. Islam means submission. These are all nouns. They're all abstract nouns. You can't pick
One
up. You can't pick.
is Islam, one who submits. I'm reading it off the
Yes.
etymology online page.
There you go. The Muslim means one who submits. Okay? Now you're getting away from the abstract. Submissions is abstract. You can't grab submission. It's not a cup. It's a noun, but you can't grab it. The same with salam. It's peace. Peace is the abstract noun. We understand that in our own language. When you say Muslim, it's just one who submits. What do you submit to? God. You don't submit to Muhammad. You don't submit to your imam. You don't submit to a guy in a long beard and a tiny hat. You know, that's language. That's the truth of it. All right? That's just the truth of it. So when I call myself a Muslim, I call it by the definition of the damn word in the language it was written in. I don't define myself based on what people with long stories and long beards have to say about my relationship between myself and that which created me. I'm sorry. I don't define it by their words. I define it by the actual word. You know, Owen Benjamin calls it wizardry. This is how they fool people. You know, they redefine words. They turn meanings upside down. And they trick you. They make people that don't speak the language think that it means something else. A good example is that, for example, I read an article not long ago in Indonesia. They're giving out free education for people that have memorized the Quran. Indonesia is not an Arabic culture, but it's being taken over by Arabic culture. So you have to understand, when people when Muslims in Indonesia say they read the Quran, they don't read it because they read it in Arabic and memorize it. Like, try to imagine reading the Torah and repeating the words but have no idea what you're saying. This is the wizardry and trickery of Islamism or brand Islam. These people memorize the Quran. They don't read it. You know, it's kind of like modern education. You don't learn anything. You just memorize shit and then spew it out. And that's the religion of the state. Your education is the Western education. The religion of Western politics is written in the book of Western education, where you go into a fucking school, you memorize bullshit, and then you repeat it, but you have no fucking clue what you're saying.
Right.
And I guarantee you, Lamprey, any of those fucking Muslims you talk to in New York, they don't read the Quran. They just repeat words like a magic spell. They don't fucking understand it.
Lamprey, I have a question for you.
Yep.
That Muslim center that was they were planning to construct, meaning I guess the city of New York was planning to construct a Muslim center there, and I don't know
Next? You talk about next to the World Trade Center?
Yeah.
Well, they did. It was there for a while, then it closed.
Oh, is that it? Did they? So it's just not there. People aren't going there anymore then.
No, yeah, I think it closed a while ago.
Huh.
Why did they put it there? I have no idea. Probably just to antagonize and piss people off. But
Did they actually include the Stars of David in the architecture and all that?
No, it was an empty commercial space. So they were just renting out empty commercial space where they practiced their religion near the World Trade Center.
Okay, there was some design. You can find it online. They were planning to design Stars of David into the architecture.
I'm not doubting it. I'm sure they were trying to do that.
It's New York. Come on, man.
Yeah,
it's probably a unicorn and a UFO there too.
The Ground Zero Mosque. The sad true story. Here's an article I found about it. Is the sad true story of the Ground Zero Mosque. And two Muslim men, a real estate developer and an imam, proposed to build a Ground Zero Victory Terror Mosque 2 blocks away from the smoldering ruins of the World Trade Center.
Yeah, why not? It's a victory. If you believe that Muslims did do it, which I don't.
Then it says,
no, build it.
It says, haha, no, they proposed to build a 15-story Islamic cultural center.
Yeah.
Still, many New Yorkers were ambivalent about this, although it seems worth noting that the local community board voted overwhelmingly in favor of the project.
Well, right there's wizardry, man.
It shows a picture. I can bring it up. I think it's kind of funny.
Well, what you said right there is wizardry, and with the language. Islam is not a fucking culture. Right?
I just want to share this with people.
How can you build a cultural center around something that's not a culture? Doesn't make any fucking sense. I mean, that's exactly what the Jews did when they said when now it's like, are you a Jew? Well, does that mean I converted to a religion, or does that mean I have some kind of cultural genetic heritage? It's ridiculous. That's the wizardry that they use. Islam is not a race, and it's not a culture.
It is a culture. Why would it not be a culture?
It's not a culture because if we go back to what I said about defining the words in the language it was written in, it's not a culture. It's a deen. It is a discipline. It's a what's
right? But the discipline from religion influences the culture. Therefore, it is part of your culture, your religion.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of people from let's call them quote unquote Islam cultures that don't belong to the Islam religion. I mean, go into Syria. It was 80% Christian. I mean, everybody thinks of it as a Muslim culture, but it was 80% Christian. Their culture was based on their language, the food they ate, the geography they lived in.
Okay, but they speak Arabic, which is
their language, not their fucking.
But Arabic is a Islamic. That's
it isn't, man.
Which Arabic?
No,
Arabic is part of. What is Arabic then?
There's tons
Arabic preceded Islam.
Yes.
The language preceded Islam.
Of course it did. What do you think? Arab was invented when Muhammad came down? I mean, there's
No, it preceded it, but it's usually correlated with Muslims.
yeah, it's correlated, but that doesn't make it a culture. That's wizardry and politics, man. Look, if you talk to any Christian from Syria, Lebanon, um, Afghanistan, because there are Christians there, ask them how they say God. Ask them.
Well, they say Allah.
Exactly. It's not a culture. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I'm saying that the culture's premises, underneath the basic root of it, is part religious. So, for example, I'm Italian, I'm a Catholic, right? I have more in common with someone from South America, even though he doesn't speak the same language as me, but he's Catholic also. So the family unit and the way he acts is quite similar to the same way I do. So if I were to look at a house, if let's for example, I look at my friend's wife who's Brazil's homeland and see her house, I will see the same kind of things with inside the houses that would be associated with things inside my house versus someone from China or someone from Afghanistan, because their religion is the same as my religion.
Well, not well. You know what? You might have something more in common with a Christian or Catholic Syrian than you would a Muslim American.
Right,
Now,
exactly.
but
So the
the point,
religion is kind of the mudsill, the basic fundamental root
no, it's
of the
not.
cultures at hand.
Now,
Absolutely.
culture comes first. Religion is later. Look, there are. If you go, okay, go to the Middle East. Go to any Middle Eastern country where it's still safe to travel. Talk to a Christian, talk to a Muslim, talk to a Jew in that same fucking that grew up, had family, parents, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh generation in that same country. The only difference will be the religion they believe in, but their culture supersedes that. The language they speak, the food they eat, how fast they walk, how they shake hands, how they wipe their ass. That's culture. Religion is not. Religion is just a small little part of culture, a very, very small part. The wizards that a lot of them who call themselves Jews and control the media, they want you to think differently, obviously, because that's an easier way to divide people. You know, I say Allah, you say uh, God, you say Jesus. Boom, you're different. Much, much easier way to divide people. But if even in New York, if you were a Muslim, I don't. I mean, I guess I suppose Islam into the Western Hemisphere is a lot newer than say Christianity or Judaism. But honestly, everybody in New York wipes their ass the same way. They use toilet paper. Go to the Middle East and they use fucking water in their left hand, whether they're Christian or Jew or Muslim. You know. So no, it's not.
On a very kind of simplistic level, in like Torah Jews, Orthodox Jews, ultra Orthodox Jews, they do all have a specific way that they wipe their ass. They all have a specific way that they go about, living their day-to-day lives. That is commanded to them through the Torah by God. And they do it because God commanded it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you consider, all these different elements of propaganda that are designed to tell people what to think, and how, all of those kind of principles relating to, God's commandments and how it's kind of designed to replace religion in a way. It makes a lot of sense as far as
religion is
how
very
that
messy.
how that plays out as far as kind of teaching people what to think instead of teaching people to learn how to think.
Yes.
And logos is is an inherent part of learning how to think versus being told what to think.
Agreed.
And logos is, I wouldn't say with Orthodox Judaism, I wouldn't say it as far as truth goes, it's not rejected because logos is also truth. And and there's still an element of God being truth in the Torah and in Orthodox Judaism.
All Abrahamic
And if you're
religions.
told that the truth is families are supposed to be dysfunctional, and that fathers are supposed to be, that
marginalized.
fathers are supposed to be screw ups, that men aren't supposed to be men, that all these different things that you're being told by the people who control, who we'll just call them like the techno utopianists and the technocracy,
Mm-hmm.
right? It makes sense that just going back to like Kurzweil, or any, not just Jews, anybody who's basically involved in replacing politics and and technology with religion.
Yeah.
Anybody who's involved in that game, whoever it may be, it makes sense that they're applying kind of religious principles to that,
Yeah.
in the sense of inverting truth.
I agree, and I just thought of another analogy when it comes to kind of trying to understand how we're defining what a Jew is, or a Muslim is, or Christian is. Look, if and again, a lot of it has to do with confusion of language, and language is culture, and there has to be a little bit of effort put forward to kind of understand language a little bit before you can understand a culture that you don't understand. And for example, what's a plumber? What does a plumber do?
Somebody who fixes plumbing, somebody who fixes pipes and toilets and sinks and anything.
You're wrong. It's a job a Jew would never take.
No.
I had to do that.
I should have said a janitor. What's a janitor?
Yeah, janitors.
Custodian. We're
Janitor.
listen.
Yeah.
We gotta be politically correct on this channel, asshole.
What is a so a plumber is a job a Jew will never take.
You don't have
There
to.
you go.
You don't have to be politically correct. Please don't.
You don't say janitor anymore, okay?
But seriously, man. look. Okay, we everybody knows what a fucking plumber is if you use the English word and we all speak English, right? So if somebody goes no, a plumber is who believes in the profit of plumbing, and you're like, no, I don't think I read that in my textbook. I think I just need to know how to like tighten pipes and clear out pipes and do this job. I mean, it's very clear in the definition of the actual word. So if you understand what the word means, then you understand, because words have meaning, and you understand how it's defined. And it's the same again with the confusion and the concept of saying the Jews, and people calling E. Michael Jones a anti-Semite for just using that word. This is all fucking. This is the wizardry of confusing the meaning of words have fucking meanings, man.
Now,
In all languages.
I will say, in all fairness, I actually have a deep appreciation for the trivium method, and the trivium method uh, is the foundation of the classical of the seven classical liberal arts and sciences, and I've gained a very deep amount of appreciation for that over the course of the last 10 years. The more I learn about postmodernism, and the more I learn about it, and the more I learn about you know any possibility of restoring any kind of sanity into this world. And um and I've actually seen a Sunni Muslim. uh uh he teaches it in Berkeley, oddly enough. I wish I could remember his name, but right now I'm not able to. But he was teaching about the trivium method, and I thought that was very impressive. I mean, if that's something that we could all agree on as religious people, you know, as far as bringing that back, and bringing back classical education, that would, to me, that's something I've been emphasizing a lot, just online with communicating with people, is just bringing that back
Yeah, because the modern
into our.
education tells you that a plumber can be a Jew. Makes no goddamn sense. Makes zero fucking sense, man.
Janitor.
Or a janitor.
Custodian.
Custodian, sorry, custodian. I,
Yeah,
I,
that.
I almost said nigger, but then I remembered custodian. Fuck.
Oh man, no. We're too Jews. We can't take that level of oppression. It's too much for us. We've already been oppressed enough throughout history, and being forced into the position of having to be a janitor would just be way too much.
Yeah, way too much.
let's
Way.
let's 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 we we need more Mexicans coming into the country for that work.
Yes.
And I'm totally joking, just for anybody listening. I don't actually think that's true. But that is that. I mean, I don't think that's true, but I think there are a lot of Jews, like people who are pushing for legal immigration, who do kind of view it that way, and I think it's kind of a sad thing to see, the very least.
Yes.
And dare I say, racist.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I brought it up briefly earlier, man. Is none of those words have any meaning anymore. I'm a misogynist. I am a
Everyone's a
racist.
little bit racist.
Yes, I'm a misogynist. I am a racist. I am an anti-Semitic. Um, whatever other pejorative, I am that because it doesn't have meaning anymore in the modern day uh, vernacular. It doesn't exist. It has no meaning. They have reduced. They've taken the meaning of words and thrown them out. It's all gone. They don't have any meaning anymore. It's just a word that you can use to call somebody a bad name. And this is the game they like to play. They like to play it, and they're going to lose it because I know they want to have power behind their little spells, but it doesn't. It serves the opposite purpose. It doesn't gain meaning. It loses it. Unless you go back to what words really mean, then you're going to lose power. And that's why on this channel, my inspiration was from the one of the introduction to Sam Garen's translation of the Quran is like, bring back the word sodomite. They're not gay. That's wizardry. They're not homosexuals. They're fucking sodomites. Bring it back. Let's understand what words actually mean. Stop using pejoratives. When you see a guy that you don't like, don't. If you see a guy who obviously loves to put a cock in his mouth, don't call him gay. Because that means happy. Don't call him a fag. That's a bundle of sticks. These words have meanings. Let's not confuse them. He's a sodomite. So that's my point. I mean, words have meanings. Understand what they mean and use them for their correct purpose. Right? Don't use them as pejoratives. That's why when somebody calls me a misogynist, I clap my hands and go, yes, I am. 100%. Because it has no meaning. Anyway, guys, we're on 3 minutes. We're over 3 hours, so let's bring the stream to a close. I just want
See, now they're trying to equate, just to help bring it to a close.
Sure.
With Antifa and Portland and all of the opposing forces. I'm just saying. They're trying to, speaking of inversion, they're trying to equate anything that opposes that narrative to fascism.
Yes.
And
which is another pejorative.
And it is.
Well, if you call someone a fascist, it's now a pejorative. It has no meaning. And if you're an anti-fascist, then you're an anti-pejorative. So it's like if I called you an asshole, then I would be an anti-asshole. I'm anti-asshole, everybody. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
I guess that would be a vagina? I don't know.
It could be in the mouth.
The mouth, yeah. The anti-asshole is the mouth. That's right. I don't shit out my mouth. I'm an anti-asshole.
You are kind of a mouthpiece, I am.
Yes, I am.
It's all right, though.
Yes, I am.
You're good mouthpiece to listen to. It's all good.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. We're gonna end it here. I appreciate you guys coming in to listen. Victor's still in. Oh, by the way, Victor posted a link to his channel in the chats. Go to his channel. There was also Monk came in. He's got a MGTOW channel. Check him out as well. And Lamprey, should I mention anything about 2-year anniversary?
We'll do you should shoot a promo for that to let everyone know that we'll do either not next week, the following week. Try to get everybody on that wants to come on.
Yeah, we haven't settled on a date yet, but we'll do that. Lamprey and I will discuss it over the next week, and we're gonna have a 2-year anniversary coming up. So we're gonna get a few people on, just have a little bit of a celebration. 2 years is a long time, man.
Goes by quick.
Oh fuck, man. I'm 44, man. I know how fast life goes by. Too fast. Next thing you know, you're a fucking Muslim. It's incredible. So, anyway, guys, thank you for your time and your comments and listening. We will be back next weekend, and we will let you know beforehand when we do our 2nd anniversary special. I also want to thank Aaron for coming on. Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks
and,
for joining,
thank
man.
you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed the talk with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you and I had a few off-air talks, and I thought, we got to get this guy on. And besides, you were a Jew, so I thought.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can be your accessory now. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Jews and Italians, Lamprey. You know our history.
That's right. 2 peas in the same pod, my brother.
Well, everybody thinks right. Lamprey's a Jew.
That's right. You want to talk about MGTOW issues? We should devote one episode to diamonds.
Ooh, I got my watch in the Diamond District, and I bought off of Israelis.
Oh,
They
see,
probably robbed my
there you
ass.
go. There you
See?
go.
There you
Diamonds
go.
are a girl's best friend. Anyway, not men. Diamonds. Anyway.
All right. Well. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. We're gonna call it quits tonight. Be safe, be wise, be MGTOW brothers, and we will see you in a week's time. Take care.